Chapter 2007. After so many worlds, Gu Xingyin could see very clearly that if a woman didn't have the financial ability to be independent and could only rely on a man to survive, that would undoubtedly be quite sad. Because there was no doubt that this meant that she would be betting her future on a man's so-called conscience. It was fine if she met a good person, but what if she met a scumbag? Were there any scumbags in the world today? How many women who looked good on the outside could only force a smile and pretend that they didn't know anything when they knew that their husband had a young and beautiful mistress outside? Because their glory and expenses all depended on that man. If that layer of cover was torn apart, they would lose the only wealthy life they had now. How sad. Gu Xingyin retracted her thoughts. She didn't comment on whether Zhang Henin was sad or not. If she knew what was good for her, she would stay by Jie Ming's side and not disturb her. If she came again, Gu Xingyin was happy to teach her what it meant to be a rich family bullying others. That was why one's horizons were really scary. To Zhang Henin, Jie Ming was the most valuable son-in-law she had ever seen. Therefore, she thought that everyone was like her, coveting Jie Ming. Little did she know that in front of a big shot like the Xia family, a small company like Jie Ming's was really like a game. After work, they went home. After dinner, the family sat on the sofa eating fruits and watching TV. Gu Xingyin suddenly said, "Dad, Mom, I'll bring someone back tomorrow to show you." Father Xia and Mother Xia looked at each other. Mother Xia asked carefully, "Henin, are you bringing a friend over to play?" Gu Xingyin nodded. Mother Xia asked again, "Is it a friend of the same sex or opposite sex?" Seeing how careful her mother was, Gu Xingyin couldn't help but want to laugh. She stopped keeping them in suspense and said with a smile, "It's my boyfriend for now." Boyfriend. Father Xia and Mother Xia looked at each other again and saw nervousness and interest in each other's eyes. Mother Xia quickly asked, "How old is he? What does he do? How's his family background? How long have you known each other?" Father Xia even turned off the volume of the TV and stared at Gu Xingyin with sparkling eyes. At this time, Gu Xingyin kept them in suspense. "When he comes tomorrow, you will know." Mother Xia rolled her eyes at her. "You child, why are you still playing mysterious with us?" Gu Xingyin smiled and hugged one of her arms. She said coquettishly, "I wanted to give you a surprise. You must have heard of his name." Mrs. Xia was a little puzzled. In the end, she followed her daughter's wishes and did not ask further. After Gu Xingyin informed his family, he informed Sun Yuye and asked him to go home with him tomorrow. Sun Yuye said that he might as well come to the Xia Corporation to pick her up tomorrow, and the two of them would go to the Xia family together. Gu Xingyin agreed. The next day, Gu Xingyin got off work early. She walked out of the company building and saw the low-key black Bentley. Sun Yuye got out of the driver's seat when he saw her leave. Gu Xingyin narrowed her eyes and looked at him. It was obvious that the man had dressed up carefully today. A man's dressing wasn't as complicated as a woman's, but it was undeniable, he looked even more handsome. "I'll come back at night." Ahem, I won't tell you that I couldn't sleep until 4:00 last night and lay like a corpse the entire day. What a crazy biological clock. Chapter 2008. Have you been waiting for a long time? Gu Xingyin asked. Sun Yuye shook his head. "I just arrived too." Gu Xingyin didn't comment. Sometimes, there were some things that didn't need to be taken seriously. Sun Yuye walked to the other side and opened the car door. He gestured for Gu Xingyin to get in. Gu Xingyin was about to walk over when a female voice suddenly called out to her from behind. "Xia Han." She stopped in her tracks and turned around. It was Zhang Henin. She had changed into a suit and trousers today. Her hair was much shorter, and her entire temperament looked a little different. However, in Gu Xingyin's opinion, such an outfit didn't suit Zhang Henin. She was the kind of girl with a petite figure and gentle facial features. She was suitable for a white dress and long hair. Men would think of the campus goddess when they looked at her. Gu Xingyin shook her head and ignored her inner feelings. What did this have to do with her? Maybe she just wanted to change her style. But, why was she looking for her again? Gu Xingyin frowned and didn't stand still. She watched Zhang Henin walk over. Zhang Henin saw Xinyue standing on the other side of the car at a glance. There was no other reason. This man was too eye-catching. Even a woman like Zhang Henin, who had someone in her heart, couldn't help but be dazed when she saw such an outstanding man. Then she looked at the other party's posture as if he was opening the car door for Xiehan. Zhang Henin was delighted. A young single man and woman. She subconsciously thought of their relationship in the direction of ambiguity. If that was the case, Zhang Henin looked at Xinyue again. Even if she was unwilling, she had to admit that this man crushed her boyfriend in terms of appearance and aura. Looking at the car he drove, although Zhang Henin didn't have a deep understanding of luxury cars, she still knew about Bentley. A standard tall, rich, and handsome man. Xinyue glanced at the two of them. To be precise, he glanced at the expression on Gu Xingyin's face. Then he saw the impatience and disgust on Gu Xingyin's face. Obviously, she did not welcome the arrival of this lady. Thinking of this, Xinyue dispelled the idea of avoiding it. Miss Zhang, what a coincidence. Gu Xingyin pursed his lips and greeted her in a neutral tone. Zhang Henin was a little embarrassed to see her like this. She glanced at Xinyue again. This man had no intention of leaving. She could only bite her lip and say to Gu Xingyin, "Miss Xie, can I talk to you?" Gu Xingyin raised her hand and looked at the time. "Sorry, I'm in a hurry." It was obvious that he didn't want to talk to her. Zhang Henin choked and continued, "It's about Jie Ming." She stared intently at Gu Xingyin, wanting to see her reaction. Gu Xingyin laughed sarcastically. "Miss Zhang, what kind of illusion do you have that makes you think that a man who has broken up with me for so long still has the charm to order me around in his name?" Xinyue's heart skipped a beat. He got a lot of information from that sentence. What he cared about the most was that the person called Jie Ming seemed to be Xie Han's ex-boyfriend. Zhang Henin's face paled. She hadn't expected Gu Xingyin to be so rude. Gu Xingyin continued, "I'll say it again. I'm not interested in Miss Zhang and your boyfriend at all, and I don't want to develop any relationship with Miss Zhang beyond that of strangers. Miss Zhang, please stop and don't disturb me again." Chapter 2009. She glanced at Xinyue. Her meaning was obvious. However, she had just taken 2 steps when she realized that someone had grabbed her arm. Gu Xingyin's face darkened. "Let go." She didn't like strangers having physical contact with her. Before, when she faced Zhang Henin, she had never shown such a harsh side of her. Suddenly, Zhang Henin was frightened. However, she still didn't let go. Zhang Henin's eyes turned red. She looked at Gu Xingyin pitifully and said, "Miss Xie, I know you broke up with Jie Ming, but since you've already broken up, why can't you be clean?" Gu Xingyin was so angry that she almost laughed. What did she mean? Did she say that she and Jie Ming were still together? Gu Xingyin looked up at Xinyue. The man stood aside calmly, and she couldn't tell if he was happy or angry. Gu Xingyin looked away and stared at Zhang Henin. Her gaze was so powerful that it made Zhang Henin, who had been clenching her teeth and refusing to let go, feel apprehensive. She could not help but let go of her hand and even took a step back. Gu Xingyin said coldly, "Ms. Zhang, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Jie Ming and I haven't contacted each other since we broke up. Ms. Zhang, you'd better not listen to rumors." She said it clearly, but Zhang Henin didn't believe her. She shook her head and said, "If the two of you really broke up completely, how could he still not forget you after so long?" Gu Xingyin was in disbelief. "So you think it has something to do with me?" Zhang Henin didn't say anything. Gu Xingyin sneered, "It's better for Ms. Zhang to ask the person directly." However, Zhang Henin didn't have the guts to ask Jie Ming. She didn't dare to ask Jie Ming because she was afraid that she would get an answer that she couldn't accept. That was why she was going to find Gu Xingyin. Unfortunately, Gu Shengyin was not in the mood to play such a big show with her. She said coldly, I can guarantee that I am upright, but I can't control other people's thoughts. Miss Zhang, instead of spending so much effort to find me, you might as well think about how to capture your boyfriend's heart. This is more reliable than anything else. Zhang Henin looks at her jealously. You are just standing in the position of the winner, so you talk to me so high and mighty. Gu Shengyin snorted. The winner? She looked Zhang Henin up and down and smiled mysteriously. Who gave you the confidence to think that you and I are on the same level? What makes you think that a person like Jie Ming would make me, Xie Han, unable to forget him? Miss Zhang, it's best not to overthink things. Furthermore, Gu Shengyin's tone was very cold. The things you regard as treasures are nothing but dirt and rubble to me. Not everyone will only set their sights on that small piece of land. Henin is right. A deep male voice came from behind them. Gu Shengyin turned her head and looked at Xin Yuye in surprise. Why did he interrupt? Xin Yuye gave her a comforting look and turned to Zhang Henin. Miss, the person you are talking to now is my fiancé. We have a very good relationship, and we are even about to start a new family. His tone was very gentle when he said this, but the next moment, it immediately became cold and stern. As a man, I absolutely cannot tolerate anyone smearing my fiancé's honor. Miss, if you continue to pester and spout nonsense, why don't you have a good talk with the lawyer? Chapter 2010. A hint of panic appeared on Zhang Henin's face. For someone like her, the existence of a lawyer was undoubtedly very intimidating. Moreover, she glanced at Xin Yuye cautiously. Even if she was facing Xie Han, she still had some thoughts of dealing with her. However, this man didn't look easy to provoke. She didn't dare to confront Xin Yuye directly. Therefore, she could only watch as the man who was looking at her coldly and gently bent down to open the car door for Xie Han. Until the car left, the two of them didn't look at her again. Zhang Henin stood there in a daze. Not far away, a few employees of the Xie group were secretly sizing her up. They saw with their own eyes what the general manager said to this woman. Although they couldn't see clearly from afar, based on the actions of both parties, it didn't seem to be pleasant. Zhang Henin obviously felt these gazes. She felt a little embarrassed, so she quickly turned and left. Seeing her leave, the employees completely lost interest in her. Compared to this unknown woman, the man who was intimate with the general manager and drove a luxury car was the focus of their attention. In the car. Ever since they got into the car, the two of them hadn't spoken. Gu Shengyin sat in the front passenger seat and glanced sideways at the calm man. She wasn't sure if he was angry. Xin Yuye noticed her gaze. Because he was driving, he didn't move much. He only asked, "What's wrong?" Gu Shengyin blinked and said, "Nothing. It's just." "Thank you." Xin Yuye smiled and said, "It's nothing. If that woman pesters you again in the future, don't talk nonsense with her. Just teach her a lesson." He didn't act like a so-called gentleman in front of her. This made Gu Shengyin quite happy. She nodded and said, "Okay." She estimated the distance. It would take about 20 minutes to get home. After thinking about it, she decided to tell Xin Yuye about what had happened recently. After all, according to their plan, they were going to get married. If Zhang Henin came to make trouble in the future, she didn't want him to misunderstand. "The woman who came to look for me today is my ex-boyfriend's current girlfriend." She slowly revealed some things. A hint of surprise flashed across Xin Yuye's eyes. He obviously did not expect that the other party would be willing to be honest with him about this. "That's it," Gu Shengyin said helplessly. In her opinion, Xie Han was really an undeserved disaster. If it wasn't for Zhang Henin's frequent visits to her, she wouldn't have even remembered that person. After a moment of silence, Xin Yuye said, "So, that woman came to find you for no reason?" Gu Shengyin nodded helplessly. Xin Yuye thought for a moment and said, "I will do something to help you get rid of her." Him? Gu Shengyin's mind spun and almost instantly thought of a possibility. "You're going to look for Jie Ming?" A man like Sun Yuya definitely wouldn't argue with a woman like Zhang Henin. But now, it seemed that the most direct and effective way was to put an end to this matter from the root. The root was Jie Ming. Gu Shengyin had also thought of looking for Jie Ming directly. However, with her identity, it wasn't suitable. She didn't want to have anything to do with that man anymore. Chapter 2011. If Sun Yuya stepped in, everything would be much more convenient. Sun Yuya wasn't surprised that she thought of this. He nodded, indicating that he was right. Gu Shengyin smiled at him gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Cn," Sun Yuya suddenly laughed. He looked at Gu Shengyin meaningfully and said, "When we go to your house later, are you going to call me that in front of your parents?" Gu Shengyin, she seemed to have forgotten about this. If they were a real couple, they wouldn't address each other in such a distant manner, right? She seemed to be in a difficult position. Sun Yuya didn't seem to notice half of it. He continued, "It's not just you at home. We have to pay attention to this in public in the future. What do you think, Henin?" The last word, Henin, made Gu Shengyin tremble. She had thought that a serious man like Sun Yuya would be more resistant to such an intimate address. However, since he didn't care, why was she still conflicted? As Sun Yuya was looking forward to it, Gu Shengyin smiled and turned to look at him. "Yuya." Sun Yuya nodded faintly, but he was very happy inside. The car soon arrived at the Xia family's house. This was a high-end villa area, and the security was especially strict. Even though Sun Yuya was driving a Bentley, he was still stopped by the security guard until Gu Shengyin poked her head out of the car window. "He's my friend. Send me home." She smiled at the security guard. The security guard glanced at the two of them before letting them in. There were only these people coming in and out every day, and the security guard at the door was already familiar with them. The Xia family's parents were already waiting at home anxiously. In fact, the moment their daughter said that she was going to bring her boyfriend home, the two elders of the Xia family had started to imagine all sorts of things. After lunch today, Mother Xia rejected the invitations of her old friends and stayed at home anxiously. Father Xia also returned home early. The sound of the car starting could be heard. Father Xia stood up immediately. However, he quickly sat back down with an indifferent expression on his face. Mrs. Xia was also sitting upright. When Gu Shengyin brought Sun Yuya into the house, she saw her parents sitting elegantly on the sofa. She held back her laughter. Although Dad and Mom looked very calm, did they not know that it was their overly serious appearance that showed that they were not that calm? Father Xia and Mother Xia immediately looked at the tall man standing behind their daughter. With just a glance, they recognized Sun Yuya. Father Xia couldn't hide his surprise. "Mr. Sun?" Sun Yuya's name and face were well known in Yunhai City's business circle. Sun Yuya smiled. "Hello, Uncle Xia." "Hello, Auntie Xia. You can just call me Yuya." He handed the gift in his hand to the nanny with a very humble smile on his face. Gu Shengyin glanced at her parents and walked over to pull Sun Yuya to sit down. The relationship between the two was clear at a glance. Father Xia and Mother Xia looked at each other. They didn't expect their daughter's boyfriend to beat Sun Yuya. Especially Mother Xia. She had been worried that her daughter would be cheated all day. However, when she saw Sun Yuya, her worry instantly turned into surprise. Chapter 2012. In the eyes of the older generation in Yunhai City, Sun Yuya was a rather reliable and capable junior. He had ideas and boldness. After taking over the Tsun Corporation, he made the entire Tsun Corporation prosper. The most commendable thing was that his private life was quite strict. The common bad habits of the young masters of wealthy families, such as keeping celebrities and playing with models, had never been spread to him. Especially the families with daughters, they all thought highly of him. When the Xia family was considering the candidate for the marriage alliance, they naturally considered Sun Yuya. In terms of family background, the Tsun family and the Xia family could be considered big shots in Yunhai City's business circle. They could be said to be well matched. The elders of the Tsun family had also secretly revealed some intentions to the Xia family. However, the Xia family doted on their daughter. Although there were some changes in this, they still said that it was better to let the younger generation manage their relationship on their own. Father Xia had originally planned to find a time to explain it to his daughter. He really thought that Sun Yuye was a good candidate. Who knew that before he could tell his daughter would give him such a big surprise. It was the first official meeting between Sun Yuye and the Xia family's parents, and both parties were quite satisfied. By dinner time, the two of them had already changed the way they addressed Sun Yuye to Yuye, which was slightly intimate. Gu Xingyin even specially glanced at Sun Yuye. She didn't expect this man to be so good at pleasing the elders despite looking a little cold. After dinner, it was already late. Sun Yuye said goodbye. Mother Xia smiled and invited him to come again next time. At the same time, she asked Gu Xingyin to send him off. Gu Xingyin got up and left with Sun Yuye. Once you're here, as a daughter, I won't have any status in the family, Gu Xingyin said faintly. Sun Yuye obviously didn't expect Gu Xingyin to be jealous because of this. He turned around and looked at Gu Xingyin seriously. Henin, you have to know that Uncle Xia and Auntie Xia are good to me on the premise that I'm your boyfriend. In other words, if it wasn't for Gu Xingyin, he, Sun Yuye, was nothing. Gu Xingyin burst out laughing. I'm just joking. You're so serious when you answer. Sun Yuye only said, I can feel that your parents really love you. Gu Xingyin nodded. I know. After sending Sun Yuye off, Gu Xingyin returned home. As expected, she was interrogated by her father and mother. Gu Xingyin was prepared for this. She and Sun Yuye made up a small story through their mouths. Father Xia and Mother Xia didn't suspect anything. After all, they wouldn't think of something like a contract marriage. After dealing with her parents, Gu Xingyin heaved a sigh of relief. From the next day onwards, Sun Yuye started to fulfill his duties as a boyfriend. Every day, he would drive to Gu Xingyin's office to pick her up from work. Every day, Gu Xingyin would receive a bouquet of fresh flowers with morning dew. In less than 2 days, the entire Xia group knew that the general manager was now in a honeymoon period. And the man who was lucky enough to pursue their super fair, rich, and beautiful general manager was the eldest son of the Tsun group. Sure enough, fair, rich, and beautiful men are all tall, rich, and handsome. Fairy tales are all lies. The receptionist, who had just signed for a bouquet of flowers, lamented to her colleague. Her colleague took out her lipstick and touched up her makeup. Hearing this, she agreed. That's true. In this day and age, who still believes that sparrows can turn into phoenixes? Chapter 2013. Gu Xingyin watched as the assistant skillfully entered the office with a pot of flowers. She removed the bouquet from the previous day, replaced it with fresh water, and inserted it into the vase. Speaking of which, Xia Han used to be busy with the company's affairs. She didn't have the leisure to raise flowers in the office. The only pot of devil's ivy was brought over from home by the assistant who couldn't stand it anymore. She rubbed her eyes and looked at the rare bright colors in the office. She admitted in her heart that seeing such a bunch of fresh words made her mood a little better. At this moment, her phone rang. Gu Xingyin took it out and glanced at it. It was an unfamiliar number. She felt a little strange. This was Xia Han's private phone number. Except for a few close relatives and family members, almost no one else knew it. She didn't answer. After the phone rang a few times, the screen dimmed again. But in just a few seconds, the phone rang again. It was the same number. Gu Xingyin clicked on the answer button. Hello? There was a moment of silence on the other side. A man's voice cautiously sounded. Is this Henin? The next second, Gu Xingyin hung up the phone. Jia Ming. She didn't need to think to know why he was looking for her at this time. The most likely thing was that Sun Yuye's arrangement had already worked. It even allowed Jia Ming to discover the reason for this targeting. Gu Xingyin didn't doubt that the man deliberately let Jia Ming find out all of this. After all, with his means, if he really wanted to destroy Jia Ming's company without anyone knowing, he would definitely not be able to rest in peace until he died. The phone rang again. Gu Xingyin directly blocked the number this time. She didn't want to have anything to do with this man at all. If it was the real Xie Han, she might have picked up the phone for the sake of the past. But now, it was Gu Xingyin who knew the original plot. She could clearly see that Xie Han had been in Jie Ming's mind for so many years on the surface. But what he couldn't forget was probably not his ex-girlfriend at all, but the feeling of being dumped. After all, in the original plot, Gu Xingyin never saw Jie Ming say that he couldn't forget Xie Han, but he never showed any other expression. Even when Zhang Henin accidentally killed Xie Han, he didn't seem to have any extra emotions. He didn't love Xie Han or Zhang Henin. He only loved himself. Because of financial disagreements, his ex-girlfriend dumped him, so Jie Ming was unexpectedly generous to his current girlfriend. In Gu Xingyin's opinion, this man was simply unreasonable. Not long after she hung up the phone, Xin Yuya called. "I've caused some trouble for Jie Ming. Be careful for the next few days. I'm afraid he'll come looking for you." Gu Xingyin thought to herself, "You're too late. He's already called." However, she was too lazy to talk about such a troublesome matter. She only said that she would take note of it. Gu Xingyin guessed that Jie Ming wouldn't let it go, but she didn't expect him to be so impatient. After work, Gu Xingyin just hung up the phone with Xin Yuya. There was a traffic jam on the road and it would probably take more than 10 minutes for him to arrive. Gu Xingyin had her own car, but Xin Yuya insisted on picking her up from work every day and sending her home. This was actually beyond the content of the contract between the two of them, but both parties tacitly didn't mention it. Then, Gu Xingyin saw a familiar figure. Chapter 2014. Gu Xingyin turned around and walked into the company, but that figure seemed to have seen through her intentions and ran after her. "Henin, Henin." That person called her from behind. The security guard at the entrance of the company heard the commotion and looked over curiously. Gu Xingyin took a deep breath, stopped in his tracks, and turned around. She looked back at Jie Ming calmly and said, "Jie Ming, there's nothing between us. Please call me Miss Xie." Such a completely unfamiliar attitude. Jie Ming smiled bitterly and said, "Okay, Miss Xie." He was much smarter than Zhang Henin. He definitely wouldn't waste time on such a meaningless address. Anyway, there was no relationship between the two of them. So what if he called her intimately? Gu Xingyin looked at Jie Ming. It was undeniable that Jie Ming's handsome appearance played a role in being liked by Xie Han, who had always had high standards. When he was in school, he was youthful and handsome. Now, Jie Ming, who had been in society for several years, had the demeanor of a mature man. He was still a very charming man. However, the moment Gu Xingyin saw him, she couldn't help but think of Xin Yuya. Then, there was no harm in comparison. Sure enough, her lover was the most handsome. While she was in a daze, Jie Ming was delighted. He thought that it was his charm that had worked. "Miss Xie," Gu Xingyin looked up at him and interrupted him, "You're here for me?" Jie Ming nodded quickly. Gu Xingyin frowned and said, "Our Xie Corporation doesn't have any business with you. Why are you looking for me?" Looking at her impatient appearance, Jie Ming's heart sank, and then a wave of anger rose in his heart. It was like this again. It was the same in the past. Her temper was always so bad, and she didn't think about others at all. Ever since Jie Ming opened his own company and became the boss, he rarely met anyone who didn't give him face like this. If he could, he wanted to leave. It was rare. But he couldn't leave. He thought about the frowns on his partner's faces and the things he had found out. A gentle smile appeared on Jie Ming's face. "Recently, my company has encountered a little trouble." Gu Xingyin interrupted him, "I have no interest in your company." Act. Jie Ming did not believe that Xie Han was completely unaware of this matter. He said patiently, "I found out that someone was trying to trip us up in the company, and that person was your fiancé." He looked at Gu Xingyin eagerly, and his unspoken intention was quite obvious. Gu Xingyin responded lazily, "Oh. What does it have to do with me?" Jie Ming was infuriated. He said angrily, "I know we're running a small business and you big shots don't care about it.
But this is still someone else's hard work. Don't you feel guilty for ruining it so easily? Conscience? Gu Shengyin snorted. She was about to say something when she suddenly felt a hand on her shoulder. A familiar aura surrounded her. Her entire body was encircled by someone, and she took a step back. Then, she was protected behind someone. Sun Yuye was here. Jia Ming looked at the man immediately. He knew Sun Yuye. This was her former idol and the man who had caused her so much trouble. Chapter 2015. Mr. Cn, he took the lead to greet Sun Yuye. His voice was a little dry. He really wanted to put on a smile, but he had just been mercilessly mocked by Xie Han, and Sun Yuye was the person who had tampered with his company. Coupled with the current situation, he really couldn't greet his opponent with a smile under such circumstances. Sun Yuye didn't say anything. He looked at Jia Ming. Mr. Jia, why are you blocking my fiancé? Although he had already found out about the relationship between the two, Jia Ming still felt a little aggrieved when he heard Sun Yuye's words. The reason he stopped Xie Han was because of Sun Yuye. Since the main character was here, of course, he couldn't let go of such an opportunity. Mr. Tsun, my Yinshin technology is just a small business, and it doesn't have any conflict with the companies under the Tsun Corporation. Why can't Mr. Tsun be lenient? Sun Yuye nodded straightforwardly. You mean Yinshin technology? Indeed, the companies that you want to cooperate with are related to the Tsun Corporation. I was the one who asked them to refuse to cooperate with you. He actually admitted it without any hesitation. Jia Ming didn't expect him to be so straightforward. His heart sank. At this time, he would rather the other party feign civility with him. Because that would at least show that the other party wasn't willing to really fall out with him, and there was still room for reconciliation. But now, hearing Sun Yuye's tone, it was obvious that he wasn't willing to be kind to him. He suppressed his anger and tried to calm his tone as much as possible. Mr. Tsun, why do you have to do this? I don't think I've ever offended you. Why do you have to be so aggressive? He looked at Gu Shengyin, who was protected behind Sun Yuye, and a look of understanding flashed in his eyes. Is it because of Miss Xie? I did have a relationship with her in the past, but that was a long time ago. Mr. Tsun, you're a magnanimous person. You can't let go of such a small matter, right? He couldn't help but be a little sarcastic in the end. Sun Yuye snorted. He sized Jia Ming up and down, and the last sense of crisis in his heart disappeared. If Xie Han took a fancy to such a man who couldn't even understand the main point, then there was something wrong with her taste. Speaking of which, he was quite compatible with his girlfriend. Hearing Sun Yuye's laughter, Jia Ming felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what it was. Sun Yuye said, Mr. Jia, you overestimate yourself. Where do you get the confidence that Hanin will still be obsessed with you after having a fiancé like me? His words were too venomous. Jia Ming's face instantly turned green, but he had no way to refute. Because what he said was the truth. No matter how he looked at it, Sun Yuye was stronger than him. Sun Yuye ended the exchange with his last sentence. Mr. Xie, you might as well go back and think about why I did this. To be clear, Hanin and I don't like strangers harassing us all the time. If there's nothing else, I hope that Mr. Jia and your girlfriend will not appear in front of the two of us. Otherwise, when people are annoyed, they can't help but want to cause trouble for others. He said meaningfully. After saying this, he half-carried Gu Shengyin into the car, leaving Jia Ming alone in deep thought. Chapter 2016. After getting into the car, Gu Shengyin finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sun Yuye was curious. You're that happy? Gu Shengyin, of course. Look at how you scared him. Ha 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 ha. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Sun Yuye. Okay, his future wife's style seemed a little different from others. However, he liked it. The two of them went back to the Xie family's house in a harmonious atmosphere. As for Jia Ming, after a long time of hesitation, he finally understood what Sun Yuye meant. Jia Ming, who finally found the truth, had his first argument with Zhang Henin. For the first time,
it was also the most intense quarrel. Henin, you actually went to find Xie Han privately. Why didn't you discuss it with me? Jia Ming was a little annoyed. This girlfriend of his had a good personality, knew how to manage the house, and relied on him. She had always been able to satisfy Jia Ming's masculine mentality. The only flaw was that she didn't have enough knowledge. This was what Jia Ming disliked the most about Zhang Henin. This woman could be a lover, but she couldn't be a wife. Jia Ming thought it through very clearly. When his company was on the right track, his future would be bright. At that time, he would definitely have a reputation as a young talent. In addition to his good looks, it wouldn't be difficult to find a rich young lady who was richer than him. With such a woman as his wife, he wouldn't lose face outside. As for Zhang Henin, Jia Ming knew that he wouldn't mistreat this woman who had been following him. As long as she was willing to follow him, he was willing to take good care of her. He never thought that Zhang Henin would cause such a big mess for him. What kind of family was the Xie family? What kind of family was the Tsin family? They were the stabilizing force of Yunhai City's businesses. They only needed to move 2 fingers. No, they didn't even need to do it themselves. With just a look, there would naturally be a lot of people who wanted to rely on these 2 families to help them get rid of the eyesores. Jia Ming was naturally very happy to do this kind of thing. However, now he was the one who was being swept away. And the reason was that this woman in front of him was recklessly provoking Xie Han again and again. You really don't have a brain. He cursed. It was unknown which sentence had touched Zhang Henin's nerve, but this woman, who was usually docile and gentle to Jia Ming, had completely exploded. She shrieked, I'm not going to discuss with you. I don't have a brain. Jia Ming, touch your conscience and think about it. If I were to tell you, which side would you stand on? Jia Ming frowned and looked at her. He didn't understand what she meant. Zhang Henin continued, don't think that I don't know. Although you and Xie Han have broken up, you still can't forget her. I'm your girlfriend. Is it wrong for me to go see your ex-girlfriend and tell her to stay away from you? Jia Ming's face darkened. No wonder Xie Han had such an expression when she saw him. Of course there is. He glared at the woman in front of him. What do you want, Zhang Henin? How long has it been since I broke up with Xie Han? Don't you know if I'm in contact with her? Do you know who she is? Who was her fiancé? Let me tell you, we can't afford to offend him, you know? Zhang Henin, can you have some self-awareness? Chapter 2017. Self-awareness? Zhang Henin smiled with a strange expression. She didn't expect that Jia Ming would have such an evaluation of her in his heart. That was great. Since he didn't give her any chance, she might as well tear him apart. Who didn't know each other's background? Who is the one who doesn't have self-awareness? Jia Ming, how long has it been since you broke up with her? She is the daughter of a rich family, and she has a handsome and rich fiancé. What about you, Jia Ming? You are just a pitiful person who was dumped, but you still can't forget her. You are the one who has been living in delusion. Slap. There was a moment of silence. Until Zhang Henin reacted and covered her face. She screamed, Jia Ming, you actually hit me? You actually hit me. She seemed to have been provoked by something, and she reached out to scratch Jia Ming's face. Jia Ming didn't pay attention for a moment and felt a stinging pain on his face. Zhang Henin's sharp nails fell on his face, and he was afraid that he was bleeding. You shrew. He pushed her away with so much strength that Zhang Henin was pushed to the ground. Jia Ming was very irritated at this time, and he was very disgusted when he saw Zhang Henin on the ground. I tell you, Zhang Henin, we are finished. Pack up your things and get out of here. If you are still here when I come back tomorrow, don't blame me for being ruthless. He said coldly and slammed the door. The room was quiet again. Zhang Henin didn't realize what Jia Ming said until a long time after he left. He wanted to break up with her? And drive her out? After the initial confusion, what surged in Zhang Henin's heart was infinite panic and helplessness. Jia Ming didn't want her anymore.
What should she do? She had no money and no job. Except for the branded clothes and jewelry, she had nothing at all. She had basically spent all the living expenses that Jia Ming had given her. She didn't have any real estate under her name, and the apartment she lived in was under Jia Ming's name. This also meant that if Jia Ming really abandoned her, she wouldn't even have a place to live. If that was the case, she would have to live a tight life like before, working 9 to 5 every day and not earning enough money for a bag in a month. She couldn't do this. She didn't want to live that kind of life again. She scrambled to her feet and took out her phone to call Jia Ming. She loved him so much. She had to admit her mistake properly. Jia Ming would definitely forgive her. The call went through. Zhang Henin didn't have time to think of what to say before the busy tone came from the phone. Clearly, the other party had died. She did not give up and dialed the number again. This time, it was not a busy tone, but a robotic female voice. He immediately blacklisted her. Zhang Henin sat on the cold floor in a daze, her eyes filled with despair. The next day, Gu Shengyin received a message from the system. Zhang Henin broke up with Jia Ming and was chased out. Gu Shengyin sighed in her heart. I really didn't misjudge him. Jia Ming is a man who doesn't have any feelings. The one he loves the most is himself. Because Zhang Henin had interfered with his career, he had mercilessly abandoned her. If Zhang Henin was really just a weak daughter flower, it would be fine. However, she was obviously a beautiful snake who hid her true colors very well. Gu Shengyin was in a good mood as she put a washed grape into her mouth. It was not bad to watch them bite each other. Chapter 2018. Jia Ming arrived very quickly. Moreover, he probably knew that Xin Yuye would come to pick up Gu Shengyin from work every day, so he specially chose this time to wait for her. Mr. Tsun, I've already broken up with Zhang Henin. I'm really sorry. I really didn't know that she had caused so much trouble for you and Miss Xia. Jia Ming's posture was very humble, as if he really felt very guilty about what Zhang Henin had done. Seeing that the two of them didn't react, he added, I can guarantee that she won't cause trouble for the two of you again. Xin Yuye glanced at him and moved his lips slightly. You can go back. Those companies from before probably won't work with you anymore. You can find someone else in the future. It has nothing to do with me. This meant that he had relented. Jia Ming was overjoyed. He thanked him repeatedly and left. The smile on his face disappeared completely after he returned to his car. Tsun family. Xia family. One day, I, Jia Ming, will let you taste the humiliation today. A cold expression flashed across his face. In Xin Yuye's car. Are you really going to let Jia Ming off? Gu Shengyin asked. She saw that Jia Ming wasn't someone easy to deal with. Such people often held grudges. It would be fine if he didn't develop in the future, but if he did, she was afraid that it would bring disaster to the two families. Xin Yuye's lips curled up. Of course not. Gu Shengyin was stunned. Xin Yuye looked at her with a smile. If I couldn't tell, Jia Ming already hates the two of us. How could I let such a person have the chance to rise up? Watching someone who harbored enmity against him rise up was the behavior of a fool. Since he had promised Jia Ming, he would do it discreetly. People like them had plenty of ways to suppress a small company that was far from being established without anyone noticing. Gu Shengyin listened to him speak his thoughts to her without hiding anything. The feeling in her heart wasn't that he was such a scheming person on the outside, but this kind of personality was really to her liking. The car soon arrived at the entrance of the Xia family's villa. Speaking of which, when Xin Yuye's car entered this villa area, he would no longer be stopped. Because all the security guards here knew that the man driving the Bentley was Miss Xia's fiancé. The car stopped, but Xin Yuye didn't move. Usually, at this time, he would get out of the car and watch Gu Shengyin walk in with his own eyes. It seemed like something had happened. Gu Shengyin looked at him questioningly. Xin Yuye took a deep breath and turned to Gu Shengyin. Henin, it's about time we set a date for our wedding. Gu Shengyin blushed.
Originally, the two of them had agreed to a contract marriage. They had intended to get married. It should be said that it was a flash marriage. However, the way the two of them interacted with each other recently was completely like a couple in love. Even Gu Xingyin herself had forgotten that she and Sun Yuye were not a proper couple. Since Sun Yuye asked this, he probably had an idea in mind, right? Hence, Gu Xingyin asked, "When do you want to get married?" Unexpectedly, Sun Yuye only lowered his head and said, "Me? Of course, the sooner the better." He couldn't wait to become a real couple with her. As for whether it was an agreement or not, who cares? He would make her his first. Chapter 2019. As for whether he would really fulfill the agreement when the time came, Crown Prince Tsun expressed that he didn't believe that he couldn't conquer a woman's heart within the 3-year agreement. Thus, Gu Xingyin didn't sense Sun Yuye's sinister intentions at all. Of course, even if she did, she would actively cooperate. She nodded naturally. Set a date and communicate with uncle and auntie. I'll talk to my parents. Although she said this, Gu Xingyin knew in her heart that this matter most likely wouldn't be objected. During this period of time, she had also been to the Tsun family twice. Sun Yuye's parents were very satisfied with her family background and character. Mother Tsun couldn't wait for the two of them to get married as soon as possible. On the Xia family's side, Father Xia and Mother Xia were also very satisfied with Sun Yuye. Although it was a little abrupt to get married so soon, they wouldn't be too against it. Who wouldn't like to have a grandson? Sure enough, the marriage of the two of them almost received the full approval of the two families. Half a month later, a piece of good news quickly occupied the headlines of all the major media outlets in Yunhai City. The marriage of the Tsun and Xia families. The most luxurious business marriage in Yunhai City in the past 20 years. The wedding date of the two of them was also exposed at the same time. It was in the middle of the next month. Time was tight. But in modern society, as long as there was money, there was nothing that couldn't be solved. The wedding venue was set in an old castle in the west. The scale of this wedding was simply unprecedented for the union of the Tsun and Xia families. Compared to the extravagance of this wedding, the few celebrity weddings that the media had previously promoted as nouveau riche weddings, it was simply shabby. It wasn't that other people's weddings weren't good, but these two's wedding was simply burning money. Did a contractual marriage have to be so careful? The two of them tacitly didn't mention this matter. To Gu Xingyin and Sun Yuye, this was a once-in-a-lifetime wedding. It was only a 3-year marriage. What would happen when the agreement expired after 3 years? Sorry, what did you say? Why didn't I understand? This wedding of the century between the top families was talked about by countless people for a long time. Many people sighed and said that this newlywed couple must be very loving. If they didn't really have feelings for each other, who would be willing to spend so much money on a wedding? However, no one knew that the newlyweds had not fulfilled their duties as husband and wife even after half a month of marriage. After the two of them got married, they moved out of their respective homes and moved into a new home, a villa that Sun Yuye had prepared long before they got married. It wasn't too far from their homes. If they missed home, they could go home to visit at any time. The current situation between the two of them was probably similar to how both of them liked each other, but it was still far from the point of breaking the window paper. It was mainly because of the agreement. The two of them couldn't directly break the conditions they had set. At home, Gu Xingyin slept in the master bedroom while Sun Yuye slept in the side bedroom. The two of them would go to work together. On their days off, they would go out to eat delicious food, go shopping, travel, and visit their elders. It could be said that the two of them had done everything that a normal loving couple could do. Except for the last step. The relationship between the two of them gradually warmed up, but neither of them was willing to break through that layer of window paper. It should be said that Sun Yuye was reluctant. Gu Xingyin has the mood of watching a good show, who asked him not to use so many methods but to dig a hole for himself and approach her with the contract marriage. She wasn't going to fill the hole that she had dug herself. It was finally done. This was the 10th update on the 4th. The 5th update continued. Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a monthly vote, begging for a monthly vote. Good night, everyone. Chapter 2020. CEO Tsun, CEO Xia, congratulations on your marriage. In the well-dressed hall, Gu Xingyin was wearing a gown and holding Sun Yue's hand. The two of them were constantly greeted by people. It was the 80th birthday of a retired old man in Yunhai City. Although the old man had retired from the circle, he was a famous figure in Yunhai City when he was young. To these influential people now, he was enough to be called a senior. It was reasonable for them to come and congratulate such a person on his 80th birthday. Sun Yue and Gu Xingyin, who had just announced their marriage not long ago, naturally attracted a lot of attention. The two of them maintained a smile on their faces and stood together the whole time. In the eyes of others, they were naturally a bunch of loving newlyweds. Gu Xingyin gestured to the people who came to greet her. She raised the wine glass in her hand and took a sip. Oh, she was a little dizzy. She didn't show it on her face, but her entire body swayed slightly. Others couldn't tell, but Sun Yue, who was standing beside her, felt it very clearly. You can't drink? Sun Yue was a little shocked and angry. Why didn't she say so? As he spoke, Sun Yue reached out and half-hugged Gu Xingyin's waist. He brought her to the sofa near the balcony. There was a huge floor-to-ceiling window here, and there were several pots of green plants. Sun Yue let Gu Xingyin sit properly and opened the floor-to-ceiling window a little. The cool night breeze seeped in. Gu Xingyin's somewhat muddled mind didn't sober up at all. Instead, it became even more blurry. This feeling was quite strange. To a certain extent, she was actually very clear-headed. She could feel the people around her and see all kinds of figures not far away. But she couldn't react effectively. It was as if she had temporarily lost control of this body. She was drunk. Sun Yue turned his head to look at the person beside him. She sat on the sofa with an elegant posture and a calm expression, as if she was thinking about something. But if one looked closely, one would find that the corners of her eyes were faintly red. And her usually clear gaze had long lost its focus. Sun Yue was both angry and amused. He saw clearly from the side that Gu Xingyin did not even finish a glass of wine. Was this the rumored 1 cup of wine? However, this appearance was indeed quite coaxing. He glanced at Gu Xingyin and confirmed that she was fine for the time being. He got up and said to her, "Hanin, sit here obediently. I'll get you a glass of water." Gu Xingyin's muddled consciousness pondered for a long time before she finally understood the meaning of this sentence. She nodded seriously, looking extremely obedient. Seeing her like this, Sun Yue felt as if his heart had been scratched by Xiao Yu's feather. His entire being was somewhat restless. He strode away and asked the messenger for a glass of water. When he came back, as expected, Gu Xingyin was still sitting in the same place. She looked so serious that the bystanders thought that something had happened to her. Surprisingly, they were tactful enough not to disturb her. It could be said that it was a wonderful coincidence. Sun Yue glanced at her and confirmed that Gu Xingyin didn't have the ability to get up and drink water by herself at this time. Without saying anything, he took the water and sat down beside Gu Xingyin. "Come, Hanin, open your mouth." He put the cup to her mouth and called her softly. Perhaps surrounded by a familiar aura, Gu Xingyin was quite obedient at this time. Chapter 2021. If he asked her to open her mouth, she would. If he asked her to drink, she would drink. After watching her finish half a glass of water, Sun Yue put down the glass and sat beside Gu Xingyin, looking at her intently. Oh, her usually sly and intelligent big eyes were misty. She looked so cute. He really wanted to bully her. The corners of her eyes were a little red, as if she had blushed. Sun Yue suddenly felt a little thirsty. He picked up the glass that Gu Xingyin had drunk half a glass of water and drank the remaining water in one gulp. At that moment, he actually had the urge to go up and lick her red eyes. Crown Prince Tsun never knew that he would have such a perverted side to him. No. He retorted seriously in his heart. How could he be called a pervert if he wanted to kiss his wife? From afar, although no one came up to talk, there were quite a few people who had fixed their gazes on this unusual couple. However, these uncles and aunties of the older generation and the young single aristocrats were all stunned by their actions. The crown prince of the Tsin family, who had always been cold, distant, and polite, actually fed his wife water. They couldn't see what exactly they were talking about, but everyone could clearly see that after Tsin Yuye fed his wife water, he drank the remaining half a glass of water. So what if you're married? Are you very happy to be able to show off your love openly? Many young people secretly gritted their teeth. Originally, they were all staunch single people and felt that marriage was like a grave. However, when she saw such a clear stream among the rich couples, her heart suddenly surged with an impulse to get married. What was going on? Tsin Yuye and Gu Xingyin didn't realize that they had unknowingly attracted a lot of hatred. Gu Xingyin was drunk. Tsin Yuye naturally didn't feel at ease letting her sit here alone, so he kept watch over her. Those who knew what was good for them saw that the young couple was alone and didn't disturb them. But there were also a few who didn't have good eyesight. When they saw the head of the Tsin family and the eldest daughter of the Xia family sitting here without anyone around, they couldn't help but have the idea of befriending them. However, they were destined to be rejected today. Tsin Yuye was worried about Gu Xingyin and didn't have much intention of befriending these people. The few people who came forward were all pushed back by him with neither light nor heavy force. In the end, everyone knew that the eldest son of the Tsin family shouldn't be disturbed today. Finally, the banquet ended. Tsin Yuye had already asked his chauffeur to wait outside. He still had his arm around Gu Xingyin's waist and supported her as they walked out. How lovey-dovey. Many people behind them sighed as they looked at the two figures snuggling up to each other. Soon, they reached home. Tsin Yuye, Gu Xingyin, and an auntie usually lived in this villa. At this time, the auntie had already gone to bed. But knowing that the main family was having a banquet tonight, there must be some hangover soup in the kitchen. Tsin Yuye helped her into the master bedroom and placed her on the bed. Then, he squatted down and removed Gu Xingyin's shoes. He placed the blanket over her chest to prevent her from catching a cold. Tsin Yuye turned around and was about to go to the kitchen to take a look. She was caught off guard and her hand was grabbed. And she held it very tightly. Tsin Yuye couldn't help but laugh. You're so drunk? The usual Hanin would never do such a thing. He wanted to pull her hand down and coax her gently. Good Hanin, I'll get you some hangover soup. Chapter 2022. Unfortunately, at this time, Gu Xingyin didn't listen to him at all. At this time, she seemed to be lying in a pool of warm spring water. Her body and mind were lazy. This feeling wasn't very comfortable, but it wasn't uncomfortable either. But under such circumstances, she became extra dependent on this partner in her soul. She didn't want him to leave. Tsin Yuye was still patiently waiting for her to let go when he heard Gu Xingyin murmur softly beside the bed, "Don't go. Don't leave me." Tsin Yuye's heart jumped twice because of this sentence. He took a deep breath and felt that he was really trapped in an inextricable situation. The other party just said a few words casually after drinking, but he took it seriously. He said, "Hanin, don't make trouble. I'll get you some hangover soup. Otherwise, you'll feel uncomfortable when you get up tomorrow." No. Gu Xingyin didn't fully open her eyes, but she subconsciously acted coquettishly. She just didn't want him to leave. You, stay with me. I like it. Tsin Yuye's heart was pounding. He tried to get closer, wanting to hear the rest of the words clearly. However, the little rascal on the bed stopped halfway through his sentence. It made his heart itch. Tsin Yuye was a little depressed. He looked at the person close to him, but he couldn't get angry. His hand was still held in the other party's hand. A thought suddenly flashed through Tsin Yuye's mind as he recalled what Gu Xingyin had said earlier. This thought made his heart extremely excited. Was it possible? Was it possible she also liked him? Once this thought was born, it couldn't be suppressed. Tsin Yuye looked at the person on the bed tentatively, his eyes fixed on the other party's delicate eyebrows. After a long time, he finally called her softly, "Hanin?" Gu Xingyin's mind was muddled, but she could still hear someone calling her. She opened her eyes with some effort. Her hazy eyes were covered with a trace of fog, very much like the dense mountain forest that had just been washed by the rain in autumn, quiet and pure. Tsunyue was almost attracted to those eyes, but he finally remembered that he had more important things to do. He stared at her without blinking and suddenly asked, "Henin, do you know who I am?" Of course he knew. Gu Xingyin blinked and grinned. Her misty eyes curved into cute crescents. Tsunyue. Tsunyue was delighted and hurriedly struck while the iron was hot. "Do you like Tsunyue?" This question seemed to be much more profound than the previous one. Gu Xingyin's muddled mind spun for a while before she managed to accept the message. After thinking about it for a long time, he finally came up with an answer. "I like it." She answered with certainty. As if to prove her words, she even nodded her head seriously. Hearing this, Tsunyue was both surprised and worried. He was pleasantly surprised that the person he liked and wanted to protect for the rest of his life had just admitted that she liked him. What he was worried about was that this was just the unconscious murmurs of the drunkard. Even so, he couldn't help but smile on his face. Gu Xingyin stared at him blankly. He was really good-looking, she thought in a daze. Alcohol was a very magical thing. Under its catalysis, it could often make many people do a lot of unexpected things. For example, Gu Xingyin at this moment. Chapter 2023. He bent down and looked at Gu Xingyin seriously. "Henin, we're husband and wife. So, no matter how much I treat you, you don't need to thank me. I just hate that I can't treat you better." Gu Xingyin's eyelashes fluttered. However, Tsunyue naturally straightened his body and considerately drew the outer layer of curtains before walking out of the room by himself. "I've already made lunch. Get up and wash up." The door was gently closed. Gu Xingyin looked at the curtain that couldn't completely block the light and suddenly chuckled softly. 10 minutes later. Tsunyue, who was sitting in the dining room, saw Gu Xingyin walking out. She had changed into a set of home clothes. Without the delicate and sharp makeup, she looked more like a little girl. Gu Xingyin sat down. In front of her was a bowl of steaming seafood porridge and 5 or 6 plates of various side dishes. Tsunyue had good cooking skills. Gu Xingyin had known this for a long time. At first, she was surprised when she found out. Then Tsunyue explained with a smile. "My mother always thought that a wife is meant to be loved, so when I was young, she made me learn to cook extra." Gu Xingyin scooped up a spoonful and drank slowly until the bowl was empty. She wiped her mouth. "Are you full?" Tsunyue frowned and seemed to be a little dissatisfied. She was so thin and ate so little. Gu Xingyin repeatedly confirmed that she was really full. She quietly watched Tsunyue finish the food in his bowl and said, "We." Tsunyue looked up at her. Gu Xingyin was speechless for a moment. Facing Tsunyue's gaze, she finally said, "The agreement between us?" Tsunyue narrowed his eyes. He looked at Gu Xingyin and went straight to the point. "I don't intend to abide by that agreement." Gu Xingyin's eyes widened. Tsunyue looked at her. "I regret it, Henin. I can't stand the fact that we've only been married for 3 short years. I can't stand the fact that I can only look at you from a distance every day without being able to kiss you or touch you. I also can't stand the fact that after 3 years, we'll go our separate ways and have nothing to do with each other anymore. I want your whole life, Xiehan." He looked into her eyes and said deeply. Gu Xingyin looked hesitant. She opened her mouth and said, Tsunyue immediately said, "Last night, you said you liked me." "Gu Xingyin," Tsunyue continued, "and you held me back and refused to let me go." "Gu Xingyin," Tsunyue felt wronged. "My people are already yours. You can't not take responsibility." "Gu Xingyin." "Okay." Tsunyue was still saying. "Don't reject me first." His eyes widened as he stared at Gu Xingyin. If he didn't hear wrong, her answer was okay? Tsunyue was instantly surprised. "Henin?" Gu Xingyin smiled. "I like you too."
I like you a lot. The person opposite her stood up all of a sudden. Because his movements were so big, he even moved the chair. However, he didn't care about this. Instead, he walked over to Gu Xingyin's side and pulled her into his arms. I'm so happy, he said with a smile. Gu Xingyin let the man hug her and shared the joy of both parties. After a while, Xinyue let go of her and said to her, wait for me for a while. Gu Xingyin watched as he walked into her room. In less than a minute, he took out something. Chapter 2024. Gu Xingyin saw it clearly. It was a few pieces of white paper. She had a rough idea of what it was. Sure enough, Xinyue unfolded the pieces of paper and placed them in front of her. It was the agreement they had signed back then. Xinyue glanced at her and tore the pieces of paper into pieces in front of Gu Xingyin. Then, he looked at Gu Xingyin expectantly. Gu Xingyin compromised. In the third drawer on the left of the dressing table in my bedroom, Xinyue moved quickly. As if he was afraid that she would go back on her word if he was slow, he handed the pieces of paper to Gu Xingyin. Then, Gu Xingyin similarly shredded it into pieces and piled them together with another pile of shards on the table. The shackles that had been binding Xinyue's heart were completely released. From now on, there was no more agreement between him and Henin. There was no exchange of benefits or favors. She was his wife, and he was her husband. There was no more unnecessary relationship. After dinner, Gu Xingyin was forced to rest by Xinyue. He cleaned the dining room and kitchen himself. Xinyue once again felt that he had the foresight to give the auntie a leave. At this time, it was most suitable for the two of them to have some alone time. When he returned to the bedroom, Gu Xingyin had fallen asleep again. Xinyue looked at the slight fatigue on her face and felt a little guilty. But more than that, he was full of happiness. He thought for a moment and climbed into bed. The bed beside her sank. Gu Xingyin subconsciously leaned toward the source of the familiar scent. Feeling her unreserved dependence, Xinyue couldn't stop smiling. He lowered his head and gently kissed Gu Xingyin's forehead. Have a good dream, my Henin. After the two sides explained everything, Gu Xingyin and Xinyue's relationship became better and better. No matter where they went, they were almost always together. Therefore, those who knew about this couple all expressed that they had been completely showcased. In their small home, there was no longer a master bedroom and a secondary bedroom. Xinyue had officially moved his things to the master bedroom that was supposed to be shared by the couple on the first night they established their relationship. Gu Xingyin naturally could not refuse such an act. Now, she was fully in control of the company's affairs. Her marriage was also sweet and blissful, and her life was very sweet. Of course, she had never stopped paying attention to Zhang Henin. Ever since she was chased out of the house by Jie Ming, Zhang Henin's life had been very difficult. Her educational background and ability were only average, but during those 2 years of being raised by Jie Ming, she had developed a character of being extravagant and arrogant. She was not interested in the jobs that she was interested in, and the jobs that she could do, according to him, were tiring and paid so little. Who would want them? Thus, she repeated the days of looking for a job, being despised, and looking for a job again. There was no source of income, and there was no limit to spending money. In less than a month, Zhang Henin began to feel financial tension. She had to find Jie Ming. The only person she could find was him. But why would Jie Ming care about her? The two of them quarreled every time they saw each other. In the end, Jie Ming was too lazy to see her again. After a few times, the two of them were like fire and water. Chapter 2025. Now, Zhang Henin had long forgotten about Gu Xingyin. Not to mention that the other party had already married and had nothing to do with her and Jie Ming, she had no extra energy to find trouble with Gu Xingyin. Right now, Zhang Henin's mind was filled with thoughts of how to get more money from Jie Ming. But who was Jie Ming? When he was willing to spoil Zhang Henin, he was naturally willing to spend money on her. But now, Zhang Henin obviously had no value for him to spend money on her. I've made it very clear to you, Zhang Henin. We broke up and have nothing to do with each other. Don't come to me again. Jia Ming was a little irritated at the moment. Recently, the company was not doing well. Several big clients who had worked well with him had withdrawn their investments. Either they had cash flow problems or they had found better targets. He was under pressure every day. Now, he finally had time to relax. But he was blocked by Zhang Henin, this woman who was haunting him. Zhang Henin's face was a little pale. She looked at Jia Ming and sneered, "Jia Ming, I've been with you for 2 years. Every day, I washed and cooked for you like a nanny, and I even slept with you. Are you really going to send me away like a beggar? When you liked someone, you would feel good about whatever she did. When you didn't like someone, you would dislike whatever she did." At this time, Jia Ming was looking at Zhang Henin because of the latter. He only felt that this woman was disgusted. To be honest, Zhang Henin, you've been with me for 2 years. Have I treated you badly at all? Buying clothes, bags, and cosmetics, more than 100,000 yuan of pocket money is enough for me to hire dozens of nannies. Nanny? Zhang Henin seemed to have heard a joke. She loved this man. In the few years they were together, she took care of this man with the most attentive attitude. In exchange, she was just evaluated as a high-level nanny who could sleep with him. The two parted on bad terms again. Jia Ming frowned and drank there. Suddenly, a gentle voice sounded, "Handsome, are you alone?" He raised his head with hazy eyes and fell into a pool of hot spring. Jia Ming found a new love. A very beautiful and fashionable woman. Zhang Henin also found a job as a waitress in a large shopping mall. Of course, it was not those first-tier luxury brands. With her education and beauty, it was not enough for them to take a fancy to her. More than once, she saw Jia Ming accompanying that tall and innocent woman into one luxury store after another. Those places were once one of her favorite places. He wasn't even willing to give her a breakup fee, but he was willing to spend so much money on a strange woman. Zhang Henin's heart was bleeding from hatred. After several sleepless nights, Zhang Henin finally couldn't hold back the devil in her heart. She resigned, dressed herself up, and went to look for Jia Ming. Jia Ming was originally very impatient, but Zhang Henin lowered her attitude. "Jia Ming, I know that I was too emotional a while ago. I've thought it through during this period of time. It's better for us to part on good terms." She looked at Jia Ming. "I'm preparing to leave this city. In this place, the only person I've ever loved and the closest to is you. Before I leave, would you like to have a meal with me?" Jia Ming frowned. To be honest, he didn't want to have anything to do with this woman at all. However, Zhang Henin's eyes were red. It was rare for her to show weakness. In the end, he couldn't be ruthless. He agreed. Chapter 2026. Zhang Henin took Jia Ming to the room she rented. It wasn't a big room with 2 bedrooms and a living room, but it was very clean. The whole style was very similar to the home Jia Ming had lived in for 2 years. His mood softened slightly. Looking at Zhang Henin, who was busy in the kitchen, Jia Ming even thought that maybe he was a little too much. The ingredients and whatnot had been prepared long ago. Jia Ming didn't finish watching a program, but he heard Zhang Henin calling him to eat. The table was full of about 10 dishes, including cold dishes. Jia Ming glanced over, almost all of them were his favorite dishes. He looked at the woman sitting opposite him, who was opening the red wine with gentle eyes, and the trace of guilt in his heart became stronger. "Why not? Why don't you give her some money before she leaves?" Zhang Henin looked at him with a rare gentle gaze. She was stunned for a moment, and her hand movements subconsciously stopped. "What's wrong?" A trace of hesitation flashed in her eyes. Jia Ming shook his head, thinking that it would be better to talk to her later. "Nothing." Zhang Henin lowered her eyes and said, "Oh." She opened the red wine cork and poured a glass for Jia Ming. When she handed it over, Jia Ming noticed her hand. It was very white, and it was extra beautiful against the red wine glass. Zhang Henin raised the wine glass and raised it to him. "Come, Jia Ming, sacrifice to our past."
The word sacrifice stunned Jie Ming for a moment. He also raised the wine glass and drank the red wine in the glass. The atmosphere between the two was the most harmonious in a while. Jie Ming ate the familiar dishes, his heart was filled with emotions. "Henin, let me tell you." He didn't finish his words, but suddenly he felt a little dizzy. Jie Ming thought that he had been too tired and didn't have enough rest during this period, but the dizziness was getting stronger and stronger. The moment before he lost consciousness, he saw Zhang Henin's sneering face. Gu Shengyin was shocked when he received the system notification. "What did you say?" Zhang Henin drugged Jie Ming with the intention to hurt him? Gu Shengyin was a little surprised, but after thinking carefully, he felt that it was expected. System, simulate a number and call the police. Gu Shengyin pondered for a moment and said. She didn't know what Zhang Henin wanted to do, but since she knew, she couldn't just let it go. The system responded. The police in Yunhai City received a strange phone call. The voice on the phone said that someone in room 1203 of XX district had knocked someone out with the intention of hurting them. That person didn't reveal any additional information. What was strange was that when the police checked the number of the person who called the police, it showed that there was no such person. Although they weren't sure if the news was true, the police still immediately sent out officers to take action. However, when they arrived at Zhang Henin's residence, they were still a little late. She used the kitchen knife to cut off Jie Ming's 10 fingers, as well as his manhood. If the police had come any later, Zhang Henin's next target would have been Jie Ming's neck. When she saw the police arrive, other than the initial panic, she quickly calmed down. However, she looked at Jie Ming with pity. If she had known, she would have acted faster. The two police officers were experienced, but when they saw Jie Ming's miserable state, their faces still turned green. This was no longer a simple murder, it was simply perverted. Chapter 2027. The next day, the news was leaked on the internet. There were no photos, and there was no description of who it was. It only mentioned that there was a perverted assault case in a certain neighborhood, and the victim's tragic condition was mentioned in a few words. Although it was only a few words, it still made people who saw this news feel cold all over. Gu Shengyin saw this news. Her gaze deepened. She did not expect Zhang Henin, this woman, to be so ruthless when she wanted to. Sun Yuye also saw this news. He was the kind of person who was very well informed, and the fact that Jie Ming's ex-girlfriend vented her anger on him was no longer a secret in their circle. It was just that this kind of thing was too bloody. Except for the shock at the beginning, everyone tacitly chose not to talk about it. Seeing Gu Shengyin browsing this website silently, Sun Yuye thought she was afraid. He walked over and held her hand. Henin, don't be afraid. Gu Shengyin opened her hand and held him back. I'm not afraid. I just feel that woman is too crazy. It was indeed crazy. An ordinary woman would never do such a thing. Sun Yuye also frowned. It said that someone called the police, which saved Jie Ming's life. He was obviously a little worried, thinking that it was fortunate that the woman didn't target Henin. Gu Shengyin didn't say anything else. She just grabbed Sun Yuye's hand and leaned on his shoulder. Jie Ming's luck was still good. Because it hadn't been cut off for long, his finger could still be barely reattached. But the symbol of a man, perhaps Zhang Henin was too emotional when she did it at that time. Not only did she cut it off, but she even cut it a few times to vent her anger. All in all, the result was, Jie Ming was no longer a normal man. It was said that in Jie Ming's ward, the sound of cursing could be heard every day. The nurse in charge of him was a little impatient, but at the same time, she understood and sympathized with him. Any man who encountered such a thing would probably break down, right? In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. Jie Ming quieted down a lot and slowly stopped cursing. He seemed to have accepted this fact, but his eyes were shrouded in a layer of gloominess. However, the bigger blow was still to come. When the hospital did a routine evaluation for him, he tested positive for HIV. A bolt from the blue. Therefore, Jie Ming, who could have gone home to recuperate, was quarantined. According to his description, the hospital immediately targeted Jia Ming's new girlfriend, a girl named Yanzi. Sure enough, that extremely pure swallow was, in fact, a high-class prostitute. She once worked in a high-class club for 5 years. Later on, she went out on her own and targeted the young and promising men there. He couldn't tell where she got the disease from. To everyone's surprise, when Jia Ming heard the news, he wasn't even as excited as when he woke up from his coma. He seemed to accept this fact very easily and accepted the hospital treatment very quietly. Even the doctors, who had seen all kinds of strange things, had a trace of pity in their tone when talking about Jia Ming. This man was really unlucky. First, he had lost his dignity as a man. Now, he was going to lose his life. Chapter 2028. Jia Ming was completely silent now. Sometimes, he didn't say a word for the whole day and just sat there alone. After a while, he applied to be discharged from the hospital. The hospital couldn't force the patient to stay. In addition, Jia Ming's body seemed to be fine at the moment, so he quickly went through the discharge procedures. Jia Ming returned home and made a lot of phone calls. First, he went to see his girlfriend. Yanzi was having a good time in the bar. When she saw Jia Ming, she even smiled and said hello. She didn't look sorry at all. People like them often had several different ideas. Some people began to plan the rest of their lives after lamenting their bad luck. They would go to places they wanted to go but had never been, play games they wanted to play but had never dared to play, and make up for the regrets as much as possible. It was also a kind of responsibility for life. But there was a group of people who began to feel unbalanced when they learned that they had such a shameful disease and could die at any time. On the one hand, they complained about the unfair world that let them contract such a disease. On the other hand, they began to take revenge on society. They completely let go of the moral shackles and turned themselves into the kind of people they used to hate the most. Yanzi was the latter. After knowing that she had contracted this disease, she began to complain about the unfairness of fate. After that, it was a completely broken pot. She couldn't remember how many men she had slept with without using condoms. Every time she saw the satisfied look of those men, she would have a kind of revenge pleasure. Do you feel good? Ha ha ha, you don't know that the woman you just slept with has AIDS. When she saw Jia Ming, she didn't feel guilty at all. If this man didn't covet her beauty, how could he sleep with her? Jia Ming didn't say anything. He threw a stack of money and asked her to stay with him for another night. Yanzi showed a meaningful smile. She thought that Jia Ming would drink with her, so she began to prepare to break the pot. At this time, she still didn't know what had happened to Jia Ming. If she knew, she wouldn't dare to go home with him even if she had 10 times the courage. At 3:30 in the morning, Jia Ming drove out of the house with a cold look. He found a bar and drank all night. In the morning, he drove to the prison. He went to see Zhang Henin. Zhang Henin was wearing a blue prison uniform. Her hair was cut short and there was no makeup on her body. She looked a lot more haggard. That's right. Life in prison is much harder than outside. Seeing Jia Ming, Zhang Henin laughed nervously. Jia Ming, how does it feel to be castrated? Ha 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 ha, let me tell you, Zhang Henin, don't regret it at all, ha 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 ha. Jia Ming also revealed a smile. I know you don't have a good relationship with your parents, but you have a younger sister that you love very much, he said gloomily to Zhang Henin. Zhang Henin, you've been secretly transferring money to your sister all these years. Your biggest goal is to buy a house in C City for your sister and bring her over. Zhang Henin's expression suddenly became uneasy. Jia Ming was still smiling. Your dream will never come true. Zhang Henin, your sister disappeared from school yesterday. He looked at Zhang Henin's widened eyes and laughed as if he was taking revenge. Chapter 2029. Do you know where she has gone? Zhang Henin looked at him with a frightened expression. Jia Ming just smiled and said, she was abducted and sold to a remote mountain village that didn't even have a road. The people there have never left the mountain village in their lives. Countless single men can't get a wife. Sharing a wife is a very normal thing. The young girls who are abducted and sold there can't live more than 2 years. They are tortured. He looked at Zhang Henin with a trace of madness in his eyes. Zhang Henin, you ruined me. I won't let you have a good life. No, not only you, but also the people you care about. I won't let them have a good life. Zhang Henin looked frightened. No, you can't do this. Jie Ming, you can't do this. Jie Ming smiled. No, I can. He couldn't live anymore. What else couldn't he do? Zhang Henin suddenly pressed the alarm frantically. But before the police arrived, Jie Ming had already taken out a gun from his pocket. Don't struggle, Zhang Henin. I said that even if I die, I won't let go of those who made me like this. Bang! When the police arrived, they saw Zhang Henin lying in a pool of blood and Jie Ming pointing the gun at them. I'll turn myself in, he said calmly. Then, he pulled the trigger. No one was able to stop him in time before the man ended his life. 2 days later, the police received a call. A resident said that there was a foul smell coming from next door. No one had come in or out. When the police opened the door, they thought that the policewoman had vomited. The whole living room was covered in blood. The woman was brutally killed on the sofa. Her body was slashed countless times. Her body was twisted strangely. Her limbs were cut off and thrown aside. Her eyes were wide open in disbelief. It was summer. The air conditioner was not turned on in the house. The smell inside was imaginable. The police soon solved the case. The murderer was Jie Ming, who committed suicide 2 days ago. And the woman he killed was his girlfriend. The reason he killed her was simple. The woman had AIDS and infected him. All in all, it was a bad debt. Gu Xingyin only knew the news after the police solved the case. Her focus had always been on Zhang Henin and she had neglected Jie Ming. Based on her understanding of Jie Ming, he shouldn't be such a crazy person. Perhaps, he had really been forced to the brink of collapse. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but shudder when she thought about all the things that had happened to her recently. Then, she was pulled into a warm embrace. Don't be afraid. Xinyue hugged her tightly with heartache, as if this could give her unlimited strength. As long as I'm here, I won't let anyone hurt you, he whispered in her ear. Gu Xingyin nodded. After thinking for a while, she reached out to hold his hand and gently placed it on her lower abdomen. And our children. Xinyue, he was silent for a while before he finally understood what Gu Xingyin meant. The heavy atmosphere just now was swept away, and nothing else mattered anymore. He looked at Gu Xingyin. His voice was a little unsteady. His hand was still on her stomach. Henin, you mean, we have a child. Chapter 20:30. Xinyue, this man, was always calm and composed at all times. This was the first time Gu Xingyin had seen him lose his composure. I'm so happy. I'm really so happy. Xinyue couldn't stop smiling. I'll tell our parents this good news. Xinyue quickly took out his phone and was about to make a call. He glanced at Gu Xingyin and deliberately walked away, muttering that radiation was bad for pregnant women and the fetus. Gu Xingyin was speechless. She silently looked at the phone in her hand. On the other side, Xinyue had already called both parents in an extremely excited and proud tone. In just half an hour, the 2 elders of the Tsin family and Mrs. Xie rushed over. As for Mr. Xie, he still had something to do at the company and would only come back to see his daughter at night. The family looked at Gu Xingyin as if they were looking at a big treasure. Gu Xingyin sat on the sofa and listened to her 2 mothers nagging her about some things to take note of. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Tsin, was even more swift and decisive. After hearing that her daughter-in-law was pregnant, she immediately called an old friend of hers and had already booked an aunt for her daughter-in-law to take care of pregnant women. Mrs. Xie said that she would set off tomorrow to a very effective Buddha mountain to ask for a protective talisman for her daughter. Gu Xingyin listened to her mother's teachings with a mysterious smile on her face. When the elders left at night, she finally couldn't help but hold her forehead. She looked at Sunyuya, who was washing fruits for her, and complained, "You don't know, but our mother thinks I'm fragile." Sunyuya lovingly stuffed a freshly peeled apple into her mouth and said with a smile, "Don't be fooled by our mother's words. She's much more nervous than you are." He blinked and whispered, "My mother even came to chat with me just now. She said that pregnant women are fickle and I can't make you angry. I have to go along with everything you say." Gu Xingyin burst out laughing. Seeing that she didn't seem to have any psychological pressure, Sunyuya was relieved. He said with an aggrieved expression, "If you ask me, our mother doesn't believe her biological son at all. When did I make Henin angry? You've always followed my orders, haven't you?" Gu Xingyin reached out and gently hammered him. "Don't talk nonsense." Sunyuya knew when to stop. He smiled and held his wife's hand as they sat on the sofa. "I'm not poor. My entire life's worth of flowery words have all fallen on Henin." Gu Xingyin glanced at him and didn't say anything. She just ate the fruit casually. Soon, he felt a little sleepy. Sunyuya saw that her eyelids were about to close and gently shook her hand. "Henin? If you're sleepy, let's go to bed." Gu Xingyin didn't want to move at all. She mumbled something that Sunyuya couldn't hear clearly. He sighed, bent down, picked her up, and gently placed her on the bed in the bedroom. Then, he lay down next to her. Gu Xingyin naturally turned over and rolled into his arms. Sunyuya saw her actions and was a little worried. As a first-time father, he was always afraid. Then, he saw his wife's eyes open under the warm wall lamp. She wasn't asleep. Just as Sunyuya was wondering, he felt an arm around his waist. Then, he heard his wife's gentle voice. "Yuya, hubby, I didn't tell you that I like you the most. I love you the most." Sunyuya's body trembled. For the first time, she told him without reservation that she loved him. A smile appeared on Sunyuya's face. He lowered his head and kissed his wife's forehead. "Yes, I know. I love you too." Chapter 2031. Xie Han and Sunyuya had lived a happy life together. When they were old, Sunyuya had brought Gu Xingyin to an island in the west. The people here believe in their god, believing that their almighty god can fulfill all their wishes. At that time, his hair had turned white and his face was full of wrinkles. However, when he looked at his wife, his eyes were filled with tenderness and love. "I never believed in these worries. However, when I was old, I changed my mind." He held his wife's hand and bowed solemnly to the huge statue. "I hope that in the next life, I can still find you and become husband and wife with you." At this time, Gu Xingyin had become a kind old lady. She held her husband's hand tightly and smiled happily. I will also find you." Fate would not let them go far away. When she opened her eyes again, Gu Xingyin's eyes were peaceful. She glanced at the system. The system immediately understood her thoughts. The host can continue to try. Gu Xingyin felt the power in her body. She was unprecedentedly confident. She could sense that she was only one step away from that realm. She stretched out her right hand and drew a line in the air beside her. A pitch-black crack suddenly appeared in front of Gu Xingyin. She stepped in without hesitation. It was the same scene she had seen before. The pressure from the space-time crack fell on Gu Xingyin's body. However, she did not care and slowly walked forward step by step. There was no fixed route here. She could only rely on herself to walk forward slowly. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, Gu Xingyin did not know how far she had walked. It felt like only a short period of time, yet it also felt like thousands of years had passed. She could only feel the pressure on her body growing stronger and stronger. It had reached the point where she could not bear it anymore. As long as she took a step back, the feeling of exploding pressure would disappear. However, this was far from the limit. Her footsteps became very slow. However, her gaze became more and more determined. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. Her determined gaze seemed to shine. It was here. Her strong intuition told her that this was the final destination. She took a deep breath and resisted the enormous pressure coming from the endless cracks. She suddenly stretched out her hand and slashed forward. A huge crack appeared in front of her eyes. In front of Gu Xingyin, countless dazzling white lights seemed to appear. Within the white light, she saw a figure in green robes. He seemed to be very far away, out of reach, but also very close. Gu Xingyin could even see the cloud patterns embroidered on his green robe. In just a moment, her tears fell. She knew it was him. She couldn't take another step forward. She could only pray that the person knew that she was looking at him and turned around to look at her. Perhaps because this thought was too strong, that person seemed to have sensed something. His body suddenly moved, and then he slowly turned his head. However, before Gu Xingyin could see his appearance, the space behind her seemed to have sensed a huge and terrifying existence and suddenly collapsed inch by inch. "Host, come back quickly." The system's anxious voice suddenly appeared in her mind. An irresistible force pulled Gu Xingyin. In the next moment, she was brought back to the pure white space. Chapter 2032. Gu Xingyin glanced at his surroundings, feeling a little lost. But the next moment, she came to her senses. She looked at the system and said happily, "System, I see him." A white light flashed on the system. "Congratulations, host." Gu Xingyin then asked, "System, did you pull me back just now?" The system's white light flashed. "Detected that the host is in danger and forcibly brought you back." At this moment, Gu Xingyin was completely grateful to the system. In that situation just now, if it weren't for the system, she would have insisted on waiting there until she saw that person's face. But under the situation of the space-time crack collapsing, could she really escape unscathed? Now that she could see him, as long as she completed a few more missions and gained more power, sooner or later, she would be able to rely on her own power to break free from the shackles of the space-time crack and truly step into the place where he was. System, begin to transfer to the next world. Yes, host. This was a very beautiful garden. The sun was shining brightly in the morning, and many of the flowers in the garden were in full bloom. A girl who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old was hanging on a swing, laughing non-stop. Another girl who looked to be about the same age was reading an original book under the flower rack on the other side. Gu Xingyin raised her head. If someone saw at this moment, they would be surprised to find that the girl reading the book and the girl playing on the swing looked exactly the same. Yes, they were twins. And this time, Gu Xingyin had transmigrated into the body of her elder sister, Su Jian. And the girl playing on the swing was Su Jian's twin sister, Su Biyao. The two daughters of the Su family were very famous in Xia City. Not to mention their rich family background, both of them were as beautiful as flowers. At a young age, they had already revealed their looks that could topple cities. However, one of them was active and the other was quiet. The elder sister, Su Jian, was like a secluded orchid living by the water in an empty valley, while the younger sister, Su Biyao, was like a gorgeous red peony blooming in the mountains. Many of the young masters of Xia City were secretly thinking about who would win the heart of the two sisters when they grew up. "Sister, come here and give me a push." Gu Xingyin raised her head. Su Biyao was probably tired from playing alone, so she started to act coquettishly towards her sister. She slowly closed the book, but had no intention of going over. Ever since she was young, Su Jian had always thought that she was the older sister and that she should spoil her younger sister. She had always given in to Su Biyao since she was young. Thus, Su Biyao developed the habit of asking her sister for help no matter what happened. Under such a one-sided situation, the relationship between the two sisters was indeed very good. They were inseparable from each other since they were young. Su Jian had once naively thought that they would be together forever. However, she had never expected that her younger sister would push her out as a scapegoat after she got into trouble while fooling around. Su Biyao had enjoyed the feeling of being praised by everyone since she was a child. She was good-looking and knew how to dress up. Since junior high school, she had received an endless stream of love letters and confessions. Of course, she had a boyfriend since junior high. In the 3 years of junior high school and high school, Su Jiao had changed boyfriends countless times. Actually, she didn't love those people. She just enjoyed the feeling of being pampered and loved. When it came to relationships between men and women, Su Jiao was even more free and easy. In junior high school, she had already given away her virginity. Chapter 2033. After she became an adult, she became even more unscrupulous. Su Jiao often had several boyfriends at the same time. According to her own words, she enjoyed the feeling of being loved and the pleasure of sex. After she entered university, she became even more unscrupulous. She even participated in various parties with a group of playful friends. The Su family's parents had also heard of Su Jiao's reputation, but they only thought that their younger daughter was playful. They didn't expect her to be so playful. Su Jian was completely different from Su Jiao. She was almost the model of a rich family's daughter in Xia City. She always got first place in her exams when she was young and was proficient in piano, violin, and ballet. In high school, she was recognized as the top student and campus belle. After she entered university, she became the goddess of the top school in the country. When she was in school, she wasn't affected by her younger sister's reputation. Because the two sisters didn't even go to the same school. They were both elite schools, but Su Jian went to the kind of private school that required both money and ability. The management was especially strict. If Su Jiao went to that kind of school, she probably wouldn't be able to take more than a week and would complain about dropping out. Moreover, with her terrible grades, the school wouldn't accept her at all. Su Jiao went to the kind of elite school that everyone else knew. As long as one had money, the school dared to accept them. Moreover, the teachers didn't dare to control them too much. With a group of second-generation heirs in there, it was enough to imagine what kind of foul atmosphere it was. As they grew older, more and more disagreements appeared between the two sisters. Su Jian was a very self-disciplined person. She had a strict life plan and had been working hard to achieve it. She had heard of her younger sister's reputation and had advised her before. The two of them even parted on bad terms because of this. But even so, in Su Jian's eyes, her younger sister was still the one who needed her care and love. However, this younger sister didn't see her elder sister in this way. In the eyes of Su Jiao, who was becoming more and more rebellious, her elder sister Su Jian was a hypocrite. She put on a disguise and easily gained everyone's favor. Especially when others talked about the daughter of the Su family, they were full of praise for Su Jian. Moreover, Su Jiao felt that Su Jian's thinking was very old-fashioned. What did she mean by having feelings for each other before dating and being unwilling to develop a relationship? Come on, what era was this? Did she really think that she was a lady from a wealthy family living in ancient times? Once upon a time, a group of disreputable friends had asked Su Jiao to call her sister to play together. Su Jiao had said casually, "She's so boring. She's so old and still an old virgin. Why are you calling her?" He did not hide his disdain at all. Su Jian was completely unaware of this. Su Jiao was still playing casually. As the saying goes, if you often walk by the river, how can your shoes not get wet? As she played around, she finally provoked a man that she couldn't afford to provoke. The leader of some underground organization. According to Su Jiao's character, of course, she would leave after sleeping with him. However, he was interested in her and refused to let her go easily. While the two sides were entangled, Su Jiao happened to see the man's gun under his pillow. She suddenly realized that this was someone she couldn't afford to provoke. In a moment of desperation, she gave Su Jian's name and said that her family would be worried since she hadn't been home for the whole night. She wanted to go home first and ask that man to look for her again after some time. Chapter 2034. But the address she gave was Su Jian's first university. On the third day of school, Su Jian was on her way home when she was knocked unconscious and taken to a strange place. What followed was a period of extremely dark days. According to what the man said, this was a punishment for being disobedient. From what Su Jian knew, she never knew that there were so many ways to humiliate and torture people in this world. She didn't know that this man was caused by her sister, Su Jiao, and thought that he was after the Su family. Finally, after enduring for more than a week, Su Jian found an opportunity. She escaped, dialed 110, and called home. Before she could escape, she was discovered. She was forced to the rooftop of the 6th floor, and then jumped down without hesitation as the man laughed coldly. When the Su family and the police arrived, they saw a lifeless body lying in a pool of blood. The man had already escaped, leaving behind a scapegoat. But how could the Su family let it go? This case shocked the entire Xia city, and even the whole country. The underground organization, which had been powerful in the neighboring province for several years, was uprooted overnight. The Su family finally knew why their quiet and obedient eldest daughter had suffered such an unexpected disaster. It turned out that this wasn't an unexpected disaster, but a diversion of the trouble. Mrs. Su, who had always doted on her daughter, slapped Su Jiao and pointed at the door, telling her to get lost. Su Jiao never thought that she would cause such a big scene, but obviously, there was no way to change the established result. The day after she was kicked out of the house, the Su family held a press conference and hired a lawyer to cut ties with Su Jiao. From then on, Su Jiao and the Su family of Xia City had nothing to do with each other. They couldn't face this daughter who had killed her own sister. In just half a month, the Su family had cut ties with 2 daughters, 1 dead. Outsiders speculated about the reason, but the person involved never appeared in front of the public again. Gu Xingyin came back to her senses. Su Jiao, who was sitting on the swing opposite her, was getting impatient. "Sister, come over quickly." Gu Xingyin's lips curled into a not-so-warm smile. She raised her voice and said, "I'm a little tired from reading. I'm going back to sleep for a while." After saying that, she stood up with the book in her arms and ignored Su Jiao. Su Jiao was left alone on the swing, frowning. "Sister, it seems that something is wrong." Gu Xingyin walked into the house. There was a woman in a plain dress arranging flowers in the living room. "It's so beautiful." Gu Xingyin praised sincerely as he walked up to her. The beautiful woman raised her head and revealed a joyful smile. "Yan Yan, do you think it's beautiful?" Obviously, the praise from her daughter made her very happy. Gu Xingyin sat beside her, put down the book, and looked at it carefully for a while. Then he nodded affirmatively. "Very beautiful." She said it was beautiful, but she frowned. The beautiful woman asked nervously, "What's wrong?" Gu Xingyin said seriously, "I just think that these flowers shouldn't be placed here." The beautiful woman asked, "Why?" Gu Xingyin's eyes showed a little slyness. "Because Mom is sitting here. How can I see the color of these flowers?" Chapter 2035. You sure know how to talk. The beautiful woman, Mrs. Su, scolded her daughter, but the smile on her face didn't disappear. No woman could refuse a compliment that praised their beauty. Especially when the person who praised her was her most beloved daughter. At this moment, Su Jia walked in unhappily. Seeing her sister and mother like this, she greeted them indifferently and went straight upstairs. As a mother, Mrs. Su naturally sensed her daughter's mood immediately. "Yao Yao is not very happy." Gu Xingyin shook her head. "She asked me to push her on the swing. I was tired from reading, so I refused. Maybe she's not very happy." Mrs. Su had always known that her younger daughter was more delicate than her older daughter. Hearing this, she only said, "Don't spoil her too much. You're the same age." They were only born a few minutes apart, but Yan Yan had been giving in to her younger sister since they were young. She was so sensible that even as a mother, she felt sorry for her. She was willing to let her daughter live a more delicate life. Gu Xingyin nodded. "Yes, I'll be more careful in the future. Yao Yao should grow up too." Mrs. Su was a little surprised by her reaction. In the past, her daughter would never say such things. She always wanted to take care of her younger sister in every possible way. Seeing her mother looking at her like this, Gu Xingyin just pouted and said, "I also want my brother to take me to the snow mountain to play." Some time ago, the two sisters' brother, Su Zhiqian, went to the United Kingdom to discuss a project. Originally, he said that he could bring the two sisters along. But later, he changed his mind and could only bring one sister. In fact, the two sisters really wanted to see the snow, but Su Jian was sensible and didn't pester people like Su Jiao. So in the end, the one who went was unsurprisingly the younger sister, Su Jiao. A sensible and modest child would always be at a disadvantage at some point in time. Hearing her daughter's words, Mrs. Su felt a little sour in her heart. Her husband, who had a serious personality, preferred his youngest daughter, who loved to play and quarrel. As a mother, she preferred her eldest daughter, who was sensible and iron-hearted. She hugged her daughter and said, "It's okay. Next year, I'll take you to see the snow." Gu Shengyin smiled. Now, the 16-year-old sisters were in their first year of high school. They weren't in the same school, but they weren't far from each other. It was just that most of the students from the two schools didn't like each other. Ji Soa Middle School, where Su Jian was from, was a well-known high school in the country. Most of the students there were straight-A students. They looked down on the ignorant and incompetent second generations of the Yingde Middle School next door. And the students of Yingde High School, where Su Jiao was from, didn't have the slightest good impression of the group of Ji Soa High School who had their eyes on the top of their heads. In terms of reputation, Su Jian and Su Jiao were both well-known figures in their respective schools. It was just that the way he became famous was a little different. In Ji Soa Middle School, junior sister Su Jian, who was in her first year of high school, won the championship of the Xia City hosting competition and the championship of the National High School debate competition shortly after she entered the school. In addition, at the welcoming party, this quiet and elegant girl shocked the audience with a passionate piano piece, Croatian Rhapsody, and became a popular figure in Ji Soa Middle School. At the same time, Su Jiao also became a popular figure in Yingde High School. Because during her military training, she hooked up with the president of the student union of Yingde High School. That wasn't all. In just over 2 months after entering the school, more than 10 students had already gotten into conflicts because of her. Chapter 2036. Why is there a conflict? Of course, it's to get the beauty's attention. There are many students who play love games in Yingde High School, and there are also many girls. But Su Jiao is really the only one who is so bold and unrestrained. She's a demon in the boy's heart, and a poisonous thorn in the girl's heart. This is probably how the students of Yingde High School think of Su Jiao. That is to say, the students of Yingde High School and Ji Soa High School don't interfere with each other's business. Otherwise, the relationship between this pair of sisters would not be unknown until now. But, what Gu Shengyin plans to do now is to expose the relationship between the two. Then, she will take this opportunity to do something. This day, after school. Yen Yen, there's a new milk tea shop behind the school. Let's go and try it together. Tian Mi, a classmate who has a good relationship with her, asks her. Gu Shengyin shakes her head and says apologetically, "I'm afraid I can't today. I want to pick up my sister later." Tian Mi is a little surprised. "Yen Yen, you have a sister?" Gu Shengyin's face shows a smile. It seems that she has a good relationship with this sister, and her name is Su Jiao. She and I are twins. Now she's studying in Yingde. Twins? Sure enough, Tian Mi's attention is immediately attracted by her words. She really wants to see a girl who looks like Yen Yen. "Anne, I heard that Yingde is in a mess. I'll go with you." She is a little worried. Among the students of Ji Soa High School, Yingde's reputation is really not good. Gu Shengyin didn't expect that she would ask to go with her, but it doesn't seem to be a big deal. She nods, "Then let's go together." The distance between the two schools is not very far. The two decide to walk. Along the way, Gu Shengyin spares no effort to talk about how cute and obedient her sister is. She's obviously a sister complex. It makes Tian Mi very curious about this Su Jiao who she has never seen before. Soon, the two arrived at the school gate of Yingde. At this time, there are many people coming and going at the school gate. Gu Shengyin noticed that many people were sizing him up with their gazes. Those gazes, didn't have any good intentions. Tianmi obviously noticed it too. She couldn't help but complain in a low voice, I told you that Ingda is in a mess. Look at how they look at people. How rude. Gu Xingyin patted her arm and said, well, I'll call Yao Yao. When she comes out, we'll go drink milk tea together. Tianmi nodded. Gu Xingyin took out her mobile phone and was about to make a call. Then, she was stopped by a girl's voice. Isn't this campus belle Su? Gu Xingyin looked up and saw a few girls in Ingda High School's uniform walking towards them with unfriendly expressions. It seemed like it was directed at him. Gu Xingyin roughly understood that these girls should be targeting Su Jiao. However, she didn't say it out loud. Instead, she asked curiously, who are you? Seeing her like this, the girl couldn't help but laugh mockingly. What kind of game is School Belle Su playing? Do you think you can pretend to be a top student by wearing Ji Sua's uniform? Or have you come up with some new tricks to seduce someone in bed? Her words made the other girls around her laugh. Another girl with dyed hair said exaggeratedly, you don't say, School Belle Su really looks a little pure after changing her clothes and makeup. Chapter 2037. It's a pity that no matter how decent she looks on the outside, she's still a slut who has slept with countless people. Gu Xingyin was trembling with anger. He pointed at the girls and said, who are you? What do you mean by framing others for no reason? Be careful that I'll sue you for slander. Slander? The leading girl thought she heard a big joke. She looked at Gu Xingyin and said, who in Ingda doesn't know that you, Su Jiao, are a slut who can sleep with anyone? Sue us? Go ahead and sue us. If you sue the whole Xia city, everyone will know what kind of shameless vixen you are. Hey, is there something wrong with you guys? This is our Yan Yan's first time in Ingda. If you want to scold someone, please find the right person first. Our Yan Yan's name is Su Jian, not Su Jiao. Tianmi seemed to realize something and stood in front of Gu Xingyin and retorted coldly. When the girls heard this, they were all stunned. Looking at Gu Xingyin carefully, they felt that although this girl looked exactly the same as Su Jiao, her temperament was completely different. Did they really mistake her for someone else? The girl who dyed her hair spoke again. Are you kidding me? Where did you learn this new trick from? She looked at Gu Xingyin with some disdain. When you're lying, can't you at least change your phone? Su Jiao also uses this phone. Even the phone casing is exactly the same. You say you're not Su Jiao, are you her twin sister? Do you really think this is an idle drama? Gu Xingyin said in her heart, I'm really her twin sister. She stopped Tianmi, who still wanted to argue with her, and dialed 110 in front of her without another word. Rumors kill people. So Yao Yao's life in the school is like this? I'm going to call the police today. Let's see if you're justified in framing others. Seeing her like this, the girls were stunned for a moment. You're really not Su Jiao. Gu Xingyin ignored her and called her parents without another word. His words were very serious. He said that Su Jiao had suffered a great grievance in Ingda and had been framed and slandered. If he hadn't come to Ingda today, he wouldn't have found out. His own daughter was being treated like this in school. How could this be? Without another word, Papa Su and Mama Su put down whatever they were doing and rushed to the school. Gu Xingyin called Su Jiao again and said that she would wait for her at the school gate. At that time, Su Jiao was cuddling with a senior in the school's dance studio. After receiving the call, her face didn't look good. What's the matter? The boy's hand was still dishonestly drilling into her clothes. Su Jiao slapped his hand away in annoyance. Don't make trouble. My sister is here. I have to meet her at the school gate. The boy's eyes lit up. You have a sister? Is she pretty? Su Jiao looked at her mockingly. Of course it's beautiful. But don't think about it. She's a top student in Jisua. She's not like us. Seeing the boy's appearance, she wasn't angry. People like them were only together for the sake of novelty and pleasure. You said feelings? These days, who still cared about that kind of thing. Seeing that she tidied herself up and walked to the school gate, the boy hurriedly followed. "I'll go with you to meet our sister." Knowing that he had an ulterior motive, Su Jiao just sneered and didn't say anything. Chapter 2038. On the other side, Gu Xingyin stood there quietly after the phone call. She seemed to have made up her mind to stand there and wait for someone. And those few girls also stood aside in disbelief, as if they really wanted to see if Su Jiao was deliberately mystifying things. Originally, Su Jiao was a very famous person in Yingda. In addition, Gu Xingyin was wearing a Jisua school uniform and was surrounded by a few unfriendly Yingda students. It was really eye-catching. Many people who were preparing to go home after school also quietly stopped in their tracks, ready to watch the fun. When Su Jiao came to the school gate, she saw such a scene. Her sister, Su Jian, and another Jisua student she didn't know were standing at the gate of her school. Facing all kinds of gazes, her expression didn't change, indifferent like a pure snow lotus in front of Buddha. She was a white lotus. This had always been Su Jiao's secretly evaluation of her sister. Hypocrite. She rolled her eyes in her heart and walked over to that side. When the boy standing next to her saw Su Jian, he was startled, and then a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He only knew that it was Su Jiao's sister, but he didn't expect it to be twins. The sisters who looked exactly the same, if they could play together. Thinking about it, he felt a little hot. Su Jiao ignored the gazes on her and walked straight to Gu Xingyin. "Sister." Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up. When she looked at Su Jiao, she already had a smile on her face. "Yao Yao." The few Yingda girls who were looking for trouble with Gu Xingyin looked at Su Jiao walking over, as if they had seen a ghost. They couldn't help but look back at Gu Xingyin standing there. Were they really exactly the same? Su Jiao looked at them and knew what they were here for. She rolled her eyes at the girls and sneered. "Zhang Jejia, I don't want to fight with you today. Don't look for trouble." As soon as she said that, Gu Xingyin seemed to realize something. She hurriedly took 2 steps forward and came to Su Jiao's side, holding her hand. "Oh right, let me tell you, Yao Yao. I just came to your school, these girls," she pointed at the few people who were looking for trouble earlier and said with some anger in her voice, "Their words are very unpleasant. Every word they say is framing you." When Su Jiao heard her words, she could roughly guess what her sister, who had always lived in a civilized environment, had heard. She didn't care about these things at all. She couldn't help but pull her hand out of Gu Xingyin's and said impatiently, "What's the big deal? Their mouths are on their bodies. Let them say whatever they want. It's not like they'll lose anything." The girl, Zhang Jejia, who was the leader of the group, obviously knew that she had found trouble with the wrong person. They thought that they were quite reasonable and were a little embarrassed to Gu Xingyin, an outsider. Originally, they planned to let Su Jiao go today. But when they heard Gu Xingyin's words, they couldn't bear it. Zhang Jejia raised her eyelids and said with a sneer, "Unpleasant words? Talking nonsense? I say, sister, do you really not know or are you pretending not to know? What kind of person is your good sister Su Jiao?" Gu Xingyin was furious. "Shut up, all of you." She looked at Su Jiao and said comfortingly, "Yao Yao, don't be afraid. I've already called my parents and called the police. These people who started rumors and caused trouble will definitely be taught a lesson." Chapter 2039. When she said this, her eyes were sparkling. Obviously, she was very satisfied with what she had done. However, Su Jiao's expression changed drastically. She said angrily, "You even called Dad and Mom? And called the police?" Gu Xingyin nodded and said gently, "Yao Yao, don't worry about being retaliated against. Dad and Mom will come over to solve the problem later. Tell us all the grievances you have suffered in the past few months. We will help you. At most, you can change schools." Before she could finish speaking, she was pushed away fiercely. "Su Jian, you're so annoying. I'm fine here. Who asked you to meddle in other people's business?" Su Jiao glared at her. Looking carefully, her eyes were full of disgust and anger. Gu Shengyin was stunned. Su Jiao had pushed her too hard. If Tianmi hadn't reacted in time, she would have been pushed down directly. As a bystander, Tianmi, who had seen everything from the beginning to the end, could see that Yanyan's sister wasn't as innocent and harmless as Yanyan said. Looking at her now, she was clearly guilty. Thinking of what the girls next to her said, Tianmi didn't think further. She just said to Su Jiao, right? Our Yanyan specially came over after school to drink milk tea with you. She knows that you have a hard time in school and is being bullied, so she wants to stand up for you. What kind of attitude is this? She's your biological sister. Su Jiao's mind was full of thoughts. Her parents were coming soon, and the police were coming too. She was afraid that her matter couldn't be hidden anymore. The Su family's upbringing was relatively strict, so although Su Jiao played crazily outside, she never showed it at home. Now that Su Jian was meddling in other people's business, wouldn't her family know everything about her? Thinking of this possibility, her mind couldn't calm down. Hearing Tianmi's question, she couldn't help but complain, "Did I beg Su Jian to come? I'm living well in Yingda. What right does she have to meddle in other people's business? If you ask me, you students of Jisuo should just stay in Jisuo. Don't come to Yingda to join in the fun." You. Tianmi still wanted to retort, but she suddenly heard a suppressed cry beside her. She immediately became flustered. "Hey, Yan, why are you crying? Don't cry, don't be sad. Your sister is an ingrate, don't cry." She took out a tissue and handed it to Gu Shengyin while glaring at Su Jiao. Heartless. Su Jiao only felt irritated at this moment. The boy beside him even put on a gentle look and said, "Yao's sister, don't cry. Our Yao is just in a bad mood. Oh, let me introduce myself first. I'm Zhao Qing, Yao's man." However, Gu Shengyin ignored him. Tianmi looked at him unhappily and said, "Why are you so close to me? Move away." The boy retreated to Su Jiao's side. Su Jiao looked at him coldly and said nothing. She just said to Gu Shengyin, "If there's nothing else, I'll go back first." She didn't want to stand here like a fool in front of others. But soon, a call stopped her in her tracks. Yao, I received a call from Yan. What's going on?" A familiar voice came into Su Jiao's ears. Mother Su hurriedly got out of the car and saw her eldest daughter crying her heart out. Chapter 2040. Mother Su's anxiousness turned into heartache. She hurried to Gu Shengyin's side. Tianmi obediently greeted her and stepped aside, allowing Mother Su to pull Gu Shengyin into her arms. "What's wrong?" Mother Su asked as she patted her daughter's back. Gu Shengyin was crying so hard she couldn't speak. Mother Su then turned to look at her younger daughter. Father Su, who came up next, also looked at his daughter. Su Jiao bit her lip and didn't say anything. What was she supposed to say? That her sister was crying because she was angry? When the other girls saw that there really were parents coming over, they didn't dare to say anything else. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Then, the shrill sound of police sirens wailed in their direction. Su Jiao's eyes twitched. Su Jian had actually called the police over. Soon, several uniformed police officers came over. "Who is Su Jian?" "We received a call from her saying that there was campus violence, and that students were wantonly insulting and abusing others." Father Su and Mother Su didn't expect their daughter to call the police, and the worry in their hearts rose several levels. Seeing her like this, the two thought that Gu Shengyin had been wronged. Mother Su said with heartache, Yan, father and mother are here. If you've been wronged, tell us. We and the police will stand up for you." Gu Shengyin still didn't say anything. It wouldn't be easy to talk about this matter if she were to speak up. Tianmi looked around and stood up. To be honest, a girl of her age was still a little scared when she saw the police. But seeing her best friend like this, she was indeed angry. She stood up and explained everything that had happened not long ago in an orderly manner. She told them about the insults they had received when they first came to Yingde, and how Su Jiao's impatient attitude made Gu Xingyin so angry that she cried. She clearly didn't have a good impression of Su Jiao, and even glared at her towards the end. It was only then that Papa Su and Mama Su realized that the one being scolded was their youngest daughter, Su Jiao, and that Yan Yan was crying because of Yao Yao. Hearing Yan Yan's friend's words, Mama Su looked at her younger daughter in disbelief. Yao Yao, how could you talk to your sister like that? Was this still the lively, sweet, and spoiled little girl at home? Su Jiao's heart was full of uneasiness at this moment. She was not in the mood to speak at all. Papa Su, on the other hand, was more thoughtful. He looked at the policeman and said coldly, "Officers, thank you for coming here. It's just that my daughter has been insulted in school. I seriously suspect that this is not an isolated phenomenon. School violence is very serious now, and it has seriously affected the normal lives of students. There have even been deaths in some places. I hope that the police comrades have investigated carefully." Gu Xingyin couldn't help but think, as expected of a businessman, he knows how to state the pros and cons. He escalated this matter to campus violence, which immediately raised the severity of the matter by several levels. Even if the police don't want to pay attention to it, they have to. The effect of these words was very obvious. As soon as Papa Su said this, the policeman hurriedly said that they would investigate carefully and communicate with the school leaders. The other girls also seemed to be frightened. The girl in the lead forced herself to calm down and said, "What is insulting? What is slandering? If I really slandered her, Su Jiao, I admit my mistake, and I apologize." She sneered and said, "But uncles, you can ask the people around. When I, Zhang Jiejia, scolded her, Su Jiao, was there a sentence that was fabricated?" Chapter 2041. As soon as these words came out, Su Jiao's face turned pale. Father Su and Mother Su were originally furious, but when they saw their daughter's guilty expression, their hearts tightened. Could it be that there really was something they didn't know about? After all, Father Su was someone who had been in the business world for a long time, and his ability to read people's expressions was not ordinary. Seeing this, he said calmly, "Police officers, I think it's better for us to talk somewhere else." After he finished speaking, he glanced around. Because of the change here, Yingde's school gate was already surrounded by many students who were watching the fun. The police officers didn't want to be too conspicuous, so they quickly nodded. Father Su called Su Jiao's class teacher, and the teachers of Zhang Jiejia and the others also rushed over, and everyone went to the school's dispute room. Originally, Gu Xingyin was going to be taken by Mother Su, but she suddenly stood up straight and wiped away her tears. "Mom, I have an appointment with my classmate, so I won't go with you," she whispered. Mother Su instinctively wanted to refuse to let her eldest daughter go with her, but she looked at her daughter's obviously red and swollen eyes, and the words came to her mouth, "Then be careful on the road." Gu Xingyin nodded, confessed to Father Su, and pulled Tianmi out of the door. She didn't look at Su Jiao the whole time. Su Jiao frowned at her sister, and there was a faint uneasiness in her heart. She didn't know why, but she always felt like she had lost something. Gu Xingyin walked absent-mindedly along the way. Tianmi thought she was still sad, and comforted her. "Yan Yan, don't be sad, let's go. Your sister Mimi will invite you and milk tea." Gu Xingyin smiled at her. "Actually, I can figure it out, but I'm a little sad." Tianmi also fell silent. Anyone would be sad about this. She was afraid to bring up Gu Xingyin's sad memories, and deliberately didn't dare to mention Su Jiao's matter, but who knew that Gu Xingyin would talk about it herself? "Ever since I was young, I've always thought of her and gave in to her in everything. I even doted on her more than my parents. I thought she liked me too, because we are the closest sisters, but Mimi, did you see that? She hates me." When Gu Xingyin said this, a trace of pain flashed through her clear eyes. The pain was real. It originated from an elder sister who was hurt by her own younger sister. What could Tianmi say? She could only pat her friend on the shoulder. Everyone will grow up and have their own thoughts. "Yan Yan, take it easy. Gu Shengyin shook her head. That's not what I can't stand the most. She looked at Tianmi, her eyes filled with sadness. Did you see Yao Yao's reaction just now? She was feeling guilty. Those girls said those things about her. I called the police and told Dad and Mom, but she didn't feel angry. Instead, she felt guilty. Why would he feel guilty? Both of them knew what was hidden within. Gu Shengyin looked a little absent-minded. I can't stand it at all. The girl who loved to act coquettishly and call me sister since childhood will become a slutty vixen in others' eyes. The disappointment and sadness coming from this body were so real. Such a big reaction was because Su Jian was a person with emotional cleanliness. Her character was completely different from that of her younger sister, Su Jiao. She could understand those who wantonly lived their lives, but she didn't want to have more contact with such people. However, in the original plot, Su Jian, who was vaguely aware of something, chose to deceive herself and let her feelings for her younger sister take the upper hand until she died. But now Gu Shengyin was unwilling to forgive her. Chapter 2042. When Xiaoqing drove to a pharmacy to buy anti-inflammatory medicine, he inadvertently looked up and saw two girls in Jisua school uniforms standing on the side of the road. One of them had her back to him, so he couldn't see clearly. The other girl was wearing a close-fitting school skirt that showed off her tall and slender figure. Her face was still a little young, but she already had a beautiful face. Thanks to his strong eyesight, Xiaoqing could still see the girl's red and swollen eyes from such a distance. She's crying? For some reason, Xiaoqing's heart suddenly twitched faintly. This feeling was both heartache and anger. Why is she crying? Who offended her? Xiaoqing thought for a while, then suddenly reacted. Who is this girl? Why would I have such strange emotions towards a stranger? By the time he reacted, the two girls had already disappeared without a trace. He was left alone, feeling lost. That night, Gu Shengyin ate dinner alone. The auntie at home was a little worried, but Gu Shengyin knew that most likely the Su parents already knew about Su Jiao's matter, and it was probably very chaotic over there. She slowly finished her dinner and walked in the garden for a while to digest her food before returning to her room to take a shower and change clothes to rest. A good night's sleep. The next day, when Gu Shengyin woke up in the morning, she was not surprised to see the family of three, who didn't look too good. Among them, Su Jiao's eyes were red and swollen, as if she had cried hard last night. She said good morning to her parents, then quietly began to eat. Mother Su looked at her eldest daughter as if she didn't see her younger daughter, and felt very uncomfortable. But she didn't blame Gu Shengyin at all. Yesterday afternoon, the two of them had come back from into high school after figuring out everything that had happened. It was just that the truth of the matter was really hard for the husband and wife to accept. In this world, no parents would be able to tolerate their 16-year-old daughter having sex with several boys at such a young age. Especially since there was no deception or coercion involved. She was willing. God knows, when Mother Su heard the news, she almost fainted. For a moment, she looked at Su Jiao and actually felt a sense of hatred. How could she be like this? How could she be like this? Yen. Mama Su hesitated for a moment before saying, "Your father and I have already found a new school for your sister. It's an international school and imperial capital, and the management is stricter. She might only come back once a month." She was afraid that her eldest daughter would be reluctant to part with him. Both she and her husband knew how deep Yanyan's feelings for their youngest daughter were. Gu Shengyin just lowered her eyes when she heard this. Did he mean that his reputation in Xia City was ruined, so he could only send him to other places? When she heard this, she only gave a faint and did not express anything else. Mama Su and Papa Su looked at each other, seeing the sigh and melancholy in each other's eyes. It seemed that Yan was really angry with her younger sister this time. Su Jiao glanced at Gu Shengyin. She was angry too. If Su Jian hadn't come looking for her at school, or if she hadn't taken the initiative to call the police, she wouldn't have been in this situation. Last night, she had cried for a long time and begged her parents to change their mind, but this time, her parents, who had always doted on her, had steeled their hearts. They ignored their youngest daughter's cries and said firmly that this time, there was no room for discussion. Chapter 2043. Su Jiao's heart was filled with resentment towards Gu Shengyin. She thought to herself, "You're ignoring me, but I don't want to talk to you either." Only the parents of both sides looked at their two daughters with some worry. No parents wanted to see their two children have a bad relationship, especially Su Jiao. They only had one pair of daughters, and they hoped that after they passed away, the sisters would be able to look out for each other, and not cut each other off. In the evening, Mama Su went to Gu Shengyin's room. Gu Shengyin was sitting on the bed reading a book, and was a little surprised to see her mother come in. As a mother who respected her children's privacy and free space, Mama Su rarely took the initiative to visit her children's rooms. "Mom?" Mama Su looked at her eldest daughter and called out to her. Gu Shengyin looked at her in confusion. Under the gentle but not glaring light in the room, Mama Su felt that her eldest daughter's eyes were so clear that they seemed to be shining. She sighed. "Yan, we've already booked a flight for Yao Yao tomorrow morning." After she said that, she saw the light in her eldest daughter's eyes go out. She said gloomily, "Oh." Her attitude was clear, she didn't want to talk about it. Mama Su saw that and felt a little embarrassed. She knew very well that her eldest daughter was the one who had been wronged in this matter. But as a mother, she still hoped that her two daughters could reconcile. So she said, Yan, don't blame your sister, okay?" Gu Shengyin closed her book and didn't say anything. Mama Su looked at her daughter patiently. She knew her eldest daughter's temperament. No matter what the answer was, she wasn't someone who would use avoidance and silence to solve a problem. Sure enough, as if she was sorting out her words, Gu Shengyin paused for a while before she spoke. "Mom, I'm actually very tired." Mama Su's eyes widened. "Since I was little, I've always thought of myself as the older sister, so I should be good to Su Jiao. Whenever I got something, I would leave the best for her. Whenever I saw something new, I would definitely take her to see it. When something happened, would stand in front of her. Just like this time, when I thought she was being bullied, I didn't even think about it and wanted to stand up for her." Gu Shengyin raised her head and looked into her mother's eyes. People's hearts are made of flesh. For so many years, even if we were strangers, not to mention that we're sisters of the same mother. If she had thought of me and thought of my good points, she would not have said such heart-wrenching words to me. At this point, she suddenly laughed softly. "Mom, after all these years, are you used to it? Do you think that since I'm the elder sister, it's only right for me to give in to Su Jiao?" Mama Su was speechless. She had always prided herself on being fair. It was only when her eldest daughter laid everything out that she suddenly realized that she and her husband had long been unfair in their hearts. Yan was only a few minutes older than Yao Yao. Since when did they think that Yan should give in to Yao Yao? Just because she was sensible, she should be at a disadvantage? Gu Shengyin sighed as she spoke. She gently lowered her head, and the curve of her neck was unusually fragile. There was a trace of imperceptible grievance in her tone. "Sometimes, I also wish that after I get into trouble without any scruples, there will be someone who will pamper and protect me." Chapter 2044. Mrs. Su's heart shook. Her eldest daughter's soft words were like a soft knife, slowly but surely grinding into the softest part of her heart. Such unbearable pain made it impossible for her to escape. She couldn't help but reach out and put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. Gu Shengyin felt her mother's body tremble slightly. But it wasn't enough. She curved her eyes and said softly but cruelly, "Mom, I don't want to talk to her anymore. I don't like her anymore." She clearly felt her mother's body tremble violently, but she closed her eyes and didn't say another word. Mrs. Su's eyes were red when she came out of her eldest daughter's room. She then went to her younger daughter's room. Su Jiao's room was very messy. Her clothes and shoes were scattered all over the bed and floor. She had always been resistant to her parents' decision, and naturally didn't want to clean up. Mrs. Su frowned when she saw the scene. She was a woman who liked to be clean and tidy, and the style of the room clearly didn't make her happy. But now wasn't the time to be concerned about that. Mrs. Su took a look and planned to have the housekeeper come over later to clean up. Yao Yao. She called out to her daughter, who was sitting on the bed hugging her knees. Su Jiao was full of resentment. She didn't want to leave Xia City, didn't want to go to the capital where she didn't even know her friends. In Su Jiao's eyes, her parents made such a decision because they despised her. She was abandoned. Because they had a better daughter in Su Jian. Mrs. Su's arrival brought her a last glimmer of hope. Mom. Her eyes lit up. Su Jiao got off the bed and took her mother's hand, her eyes full of hope. Can you tell Dad not to send me to the capital? I miss you. I don't want to go there. I can't bear to part with you. Her delicate features and the way she pouted her lips and acted coquettishly could make most people lose control. What's more, the person she was acting coquettishly with was her own mother. Su Jiao's coquettishness had always worked on Mrs. Su. She thought that as long as her soft-hearted mother was persuaded, then her chances of persuading her father would increase infinitely. Her father had always been strict with his children, but was incomparably gentle and indulgent with his wife. Su Jiao's plan was perfect, but she miscalculated this time. Her mother looked at her helplessly. Yao Yao, your father and I made the decision to send you to the capital this time. Mama can't indulge you anymore. Su Jiao could tell from her eyes that there was no turning back for this matter. She snorted and unhappily let go of her mother's hand. She angrily sat on the bed again with a look that said, I'm very unhappy. Don't bother me. Mother Su wanted to say something when she saw her daughter like this, but hesitated. She stood there for a while, and Su Jiao never looked back. After a while, Su Jiao said in a muffled voice, then why did Mom come here? Yao Yao, you should apologize to your sister before you go to the capital, said Mrs. Su in a gentle voice. Su Jiao suddenly turned her head. She didn't expect that her mother would come looking for her in the middle of the night not to console her, but to ask her to apologize to Su Jian. On what basis? If it weren't for her, he wouldn't have fallen to the point where he couldn't even stay in Xia City, where he grew up. She didn't want to. She didn't say anything, but her expression and attitude clearly expressed her refusal. Chapter 2045. Mother Su's expression was one of obvious disappointment. Seeing Yao Yao being so willful and insensible, she once again reflected on the way she had educated her child. It was undoubtedly a failure. Yao Yao. When she spoke again, her mother's voice had become stern. Su Jiao jumped in fright. In all her memories of being sensible, her mother had always played the role of a loving mother. She rarely spoke to her with such a stern expression. Mother Su said word by word, go apologize to your sister. You've gone too far this time. You've hurt her. Su Jiao had always been a rebellious person to the bone. Otherwise, she wouldn't have played so crazily in school. It was just that when she was at home, she had hidden her rebellious nature. Because she knew what kind of appearance could get more love from her parents. But now that she was going to be sent to the capital, Su Jiao didn't want to hold back her temper at all. I won't. She stood up in annoyance and turned her head. Mother Su clearly saw that when her younger daughter mentioned her sister, her face was full of disgust and impatience. What did I hurt her in? Su Jiao was indignant. She's always doing this and that in the name of what's good for me. When did I say I wanted it? Did I beg her to care for me? You always say that Su Jian is obedient and sensible. I think she's doing it on purpose. She hasn't given up anything at all, but in everyone's eyes, she's that obedient and well-behaved daughter. I'm not going to apologize to her. I hate Su Jian. I don't want to see her at all. Su Jiao said loudly. Mother Su trembled with anger. She found it hard to believe that Su Jiao would say such cold words. Yen Yen was so good to her. They had seen it all since they were young. As the person involved, could she really not feel it? There had never been a time when Mother Su so clearly felt her eldest daughter's feelings when she said those words. She should have felt her younger sister's attitude, right? That was why she was so sad and said, "I don't like her anymore," in a fit of pique. "Su Jiao, when you say this, touch your own conscience. How could I have given birth to such a heartless thing like you?" Mother Su was furious. Su Jiao was now a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. She straightened her neck and retorted, "Yes. That's right, I'm heartless, and ingrate. It's fine as long as you have your obedient daughter, Su Jian. Throw me to the capital and let me fend for myself." Mother Su was so angry that she couldn't speak, and the mother and daughter parted on bad terms. The next day, Gu Shengyin went to class as usual. When Mother Su asked her for her opinion for the last time, she refused to send Su Jiao off. She wanted to cut off all ties with Su Jiao. Su Jiao, on the other hand, was stunned when she saw that Su Jian was so heartless as to not send her off. She was in disbelief. From what she knew, no matter what trouble she got into, even if she made Su Jian the scapegoat and angered her, she would get over it quickly and would not blame her at all. In Su Jiao's heart, Su Jian was the kind of person who didn't have a temper at all. No matter how you provoked her, she wouldn't get angry. She thought that it would be the same this time, that Su Jian would take the initiative to make up with her. At that time, Su Jiao still didn't understand that all tolerance and forgiveness was built on the basis that the other party loved you. Chapter 2046. Su Jian liked her sister from the same mother and loved her dearly, so she could forgive her no matter what. But what if this originally unequal relationship lost the support of family love one day? Su Jian had already chosen to give up, and Su Jiao was still ignorant. She still didn't realize that she had already lost the most precious relationship in the world. At this time, Su Jiao just looked back angrily before boarding the plane, but she still didn't see that familiar figure. She turned back and said to herself, "Su Jian, I won't forgive you." Gu Shengyin was quietly doing exercises in the classroom. She received a reminder from the system that Su Jiao had already boarded the plane to the capital. Gently exhaling, Gu Shengyin had a relaxed smile on her face. "Mimi, let's go for milk tea after school today." She should have gone last time, but the matter with Su Jiao had ruined her mood. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. Su Jian had already entered the second year of high school, and Su Jiao had also gone to the capital for a year. In the first few months, she came back once a month. Later on, she gradually stopped coming back during the monthly holidays. She would only come back once during the long holidays. Gu Shengyi knew that a person like Su Jiao would be able to live well no matter where she was. When she was free, she would pay attention to Su Jiao's whereabouts. The high school she went to was chosen by Su Jiao's parents after a long time, and the management was very strict. At least, Su Jiao couldn't mess around in that kind of place. However, a cat that wanted to steal fish couldn't be caged in a cage. In addition to being in a bad mood for the first month, Su Jiao confirmed her relationship with the school hunk in the same grade in the second month. But due to the school's strict regulation of puppy love, the two could only be sneaky and didn't dare to expose themselves in front of others. Su Jiao's parents, who had been paying attention to their daughter's situation, thought that their daughter had finally learned well and were relieved. But in reality, Su Jiao and her new boyfriend were having fun in the school's Grove Lounge. During the free time during the holidays, they even went out to bars and had one-night stands with good men. This was a new trick that Su Jiao had recently fallen in love with. In her opinion, this kind of game where both parties were willing to go their separate ways after sleeping together was really novel and exciting, and she didn't have to take responsibility for it. The two parents could clearly see that the relationship between the two children at home had dropped to the freezing point. Jie's eldest daughter, who had always been gentle and understanding, seemed to have been hurt badly a year ago and refused to forgive her younger sister. Even if Su Jiao took the initiative to talk to her, Gu Shengyin just coldly replied with one or two sentences. Her attitude was not much better than that of a stranger. Papa Su and Mama Su had talked to their eldest daughter a few times, but their daughter, who had always been gentle, was unexpectedly persistent this time. "I feel very good now," Gu Shengyin said with a smile, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Su Jiao had always been spoiled. She couldn't do things like stick a warm face to a cold butt. After her goodwill didn't get a response, she was even more dissatisfied. In her words, Su Jian doesn't want to talk to me, do you think I care? What Gu Xingyin wanted was for everyone to know that the two daughters of the Su family didn't get along. In the future, no matter what trouble Su Jiao caused, no one would tie her and Su Jiao together. Don't drag others down with you if you want to court death. See you for the rest of the night. Chapter 2047. Yao Yao, it's the holidays tomorrow. Are you willing to? Su Jiao walked forward casually. Beside her, a handsome boy followed eagerly behind her. Su Jiao was already a little impatient. This boy was her boyfriend who she had been dating for more than a year. Su Jiao was already sick of it. It was just that this school was very strict and the ratio of men to women was large. There were very few boys to begin with, and there were even fewer good-looking ones who would cause trouble. In that case, the people around him could be considered to be the best among them. It was also because of this reason that Su Jiao hadn't broken up with him. However, for a woman who pursued novelty and excitement, not changing boyfriends for more than a year was an extremely boring thing. The boy behind her was still saying something, but Su Jiao didn't hear him at all. She looked around the school that she was already familiar with and said indifferently, "No, I told my family that I'm going home during the holidays." The boy was disappointed, but he didn't say anything. Su Jiao wasn't in the mood to care about his feelings. She slowly walked out of the school gate. Every month, the students of this school could only go out of the school gate during the 3 or 4 days of the holidays. This was a nightmare for Su Jiao. She had complained more than once that her family had sent her to prison. Her parents had bought an apartment for her near the school. This was what she had exchanged for with a good attitude and coquettishness after half a year of school. Su Jiao entered her apartment and changed out of her tacky school uniform. That was what she had always said about this school uniform. She took a shower, changed into a halter top, and put on a mature and flirtatious makeup. Su Jiao looked at the woman in the mirror with satisfaction. She had an exquisite figure and a seductive aura all over her body. This appearance was the most popular in the nightclub. Looking at the time, it was almost dark. She picked up her bag, turned around, and went downstairs. After finishing her dinner, Su Jiao slowly walked toward her destination. She looked just like a beautiful fashionable lady. Red light. Xiao Qing stopped the car and looked around casually. His gaze suddenly paused. He saw a woman. The woman had a good figure and a beautiful face, but Xiao Qing wasn't attracted by these 2 points. A year ago, he had caught a glimpse of that figure in Xia City. Even now, it hadn't disappeared from Xiao Qing's mind. Xiao Qing had never believed in love at first sight. He had once thought that as time passed, the girl who had once made his heart throb would gradually become a beautiful memory. Wonderful memories. But it didn't. Even after such a long time, he could still clearly remember the girl's light blue skirt fluttering in the breeze, and her red and swollen eyes that had been baptized by tears. He had thought of going to Xia City again to see if he could find her. It was just that he was too busy with school and family matters. With such a delay, more than a year had passed. But today, when he was waiting at a red light out of boredom, he saw a woman who looked very similar to the girl he saw last year. Xiao Qing felt excited for no reason. This woman looked very similar to her, but Xiao Qing was sure that she wasn't her. Chapter 2048. Xiao Qing, what are you looking at? Chu Ming, his best friend in the front passenger seat, asked curiously. He followed Xiao Qing's gaze and suddenly smiled meaningfully. So you're looking at a beauty. Chu Ming felt that this was very strange. He and Xiao Qing grew up in the same courtyard. The two of them had been playing with each other since they were young. Chu Ming knew this childhood friend's personality quite well. For example, he didn't get close to women. With the Xiao family's attitude, there were countless women who were willing to stick to Xiao Qing. Look at the people in their circle. Which one of them didn't learn how to eat meat when they were in their teens? Only Xiao Qing, who was already 20 years old, hadn't even touched a girl's hand. If he hadn't confirmed that this childhood friend's sexual orientation was normal, Chu Ming would have been worried about his chastity. What was rare was that Xiaoqing actually looked at a woman for more than half a minute today. Chu Ming looked up at the sky outside the window. It was still so foggy. Nothing strange had happened. He also sized up Su Jiao, then said to Xiaoqing with a face full of praise, "Brother, you have good taste. This girl's looks and figure are first-rate." As he spoke, he gave Chu Ming a thumbs up. Xiaoqing just glanced at him and couldn't be bothered to argue with him. The red light passed. Su Jia walked across the sidewalk to the other side. Xiaoqing glanced at her, started the car, and turned the steering wheel. Chu Ming looked at him as if he had seen a ghost. Xiaoqing was so fast. Su Jiao looked at the time. It was still too early for the real nightlife. She was wondering if she should find a coffee shop to stay for a while when a car slowly stopped beside her. "Mississippi," a clear and gentle voice was heard. Su Jiao's eyes lit up. As a voice lover, she had a good impression of a man with such a voice. She turned around and saw a pair of long legs coming down from the black Cayenne. Su Jiao's eyes lit up even more. She sized up the man without leaving a trace. He had a good figure, and under his slightly rolled-up white shirt were beautiful muscle curves. Further up, his facial features were clear and elegant. At this moment, he was looking at her with a gentle gaze. He was very much like a well-educated young master in a literary work. Such a man was actually not Su Jiao's cup of tea. She admired those masculine and fit men more, because often such men were more powerful in bed than ordinary men. However, this was not a necessary condition. For example, at this moment, Su Jiao was very happy to develop a one-night relationship with such a good-looking man. "Are you calling me?" The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and she lifted her chin slightly, showing just the right amount of arrogance. Men, after all, wouldn't cherish a woman who delivered herself to their doorstep. She had to show her delicate side. But obviously, Xiaoqing didn't have the extra energy to pay attention to these things. He only smiled and asked, "Miss, are you from Xia City?" This time, it was Su Jiao who was surprised. She frowned and asked, "How did you know?" Xiaoqing answered honestly, "I once saw someone who looked like you in Xia City." Chu Ming, who was standing on the other side, looked at his childhood friend in shock. "I didn't expect you to be this kind of childhood friend." He even knew how to pick up girls. What happened to not getting close to women? Chapter 2049. He thought that Xiaoqing was just making up an excuse, but he didn't know that Xiaoqing was telling the truth. Su Jiao's expression changed when she heard Xiaoqing's words. In Xia City, who else could look like her other than Su Jian? Her expression immediately turned cold. "You've got the wrong person." With that, she turned around and left without another word. Chu Ming was dumbfounded, and Xiaoqing was deep in thought. Chu Ming was a little confused. Why did she suddenly leave? Xiaoqing shook his head. "I don't know. Let's go back." Chu Ming was confused by his attitude. "Aren't you going to chase after her?" Xiaoqing was even more confused. "Why should I chase after her?" Chu Ming was shocked. "Didn't you spend so much effort to strike up a conversation with her because you like her?" Xiaoqing, he looked at Chu Ming meaningfully and said, "Imagining things is a disease." Chu Ming, Xiaoqing had already made up his mind. Su Jiao also angrily walked to a cafe. She ordered a cup of cappuccino and sulked by herself. Why could she still feel Su Jian's shadow in the capital? It was simply annoying. She thought of that man just now. He was a handsome man who fit her taste very well. She thought that he was here to hit on her, but the moment he opened his mouth, he asked about Su Jian. No. Su Jiao was annoyed. How could he distinguish between her and Su Jian? If she had known earlier, she would have lied and said that she was the one he met at that time. She thought to herself. A man who had ambiguous thoughts about Su Jian had actually slept with her. It couldn't be any better. Unfortunately, her attitude just now was too intense. Su Jiao sighed inwardly and comforted herself not to think about it. There were plenty of fish in the sea. She was going to hook up with someone better than the man just now. At midnight. Su Jiao, who had put on exquisite makeup, slowly walked to a famous bar street in the western district of the capital. She looked around for a while and chose a place she frequented. After going in, she didn't provoke anyone. She just ordered a few glasses of wine and slowly sipped them. It seemed casual, but there was a knack to it. Her beautiful red lips opened slightly, revealing a little bit of her red tongue. The clear wine flowed from her red lips into her mouth. Occasionally, a trace of it slid down her white chin, past her sexy collarbone, and into her snow-white breasts. Gulp. Su Jiao seemed to hear the sound of saliva being swallowed. She knew that at least a third of the men in the bar had already locked onto her. She was pleased with herself, but she did not show it on her face. She, Su Jiao, never needed to take the initiative to find a man. There were many men lining up for her. Soon, someone walked up. "Miss, may I have the honor of treating you to a drink?" The man asked politely. Su Jiao looked at him critically. His figure was weak. At first glance, she could tell that he was a white-collar worker who lacked exercise. Her lips curled up into a gorgeous smile, but the words that came out of her mouth were the most hurtful and poisonous. "You have the nerve, sir. I'm afraid you can't satisfy me." The man left with an ashen face. The next one would be here soon. He continued to be rejected. After repeating this scene for a long time, Su Jiao finally heard a deep voice that piqued her interest. "I wonder if I can satisfy you? I'm really sorry, today's update is a little late. Everyone, rest early after reading it. Good night, good night." Chapter 2050. Su Jiao's ears twitched. The man's breath fell on her ear, hot and hot. No matter what his appearance was, his voice was quite to her liking. She turned her head and looked over. A tall and powerful man appeared in her sight. Gu Shengyin, who was listening to light music and reading at home, heard the prompt sound of the system. Su Jiao and that man were together. That man was the one who mistook Su Jian for Su Jiao in the original plot and forcibly kidnapped her and tortured her to death. Gu Shengyin carefully bookmarked the pages of the book in her hand. Her delicate eyebrows wrinkled. This development was much faster than the original plot. In the original plot, Su Jiao and that man hooked up after they both went to college in the capital and became adults. It was precisely because Su Jian was also in the capital that Su Jiao could put the blame on her sister without any burden. It seemed that this time, Su Jiao was sent to the capital in advance, which made a lot of things change. This time, Gu Shengyin was quite curious about how Su Jiao would deal with it. She couldn't use Su Jiao, who was still in Xia City, as an excuse again, could she? Looking at the time, Gu Shengyin closed the book in her hand, turned off the light, and prepared to rest. Her work and rest had always been quite regular. The next morning, Gu Shengyin didn't receive any prompt from the system until she went to school after breakfast. Thinking about it, it was obvious that people with short nights would not wake up so early. Sure enough, when the morning self-study was over and the first class was about to start, Gu Shengyin finally got the feedback from the system. The conclusion made her a little surprised. Maybe it was because the current Su Jiao hadn't seen all the sales like in the original plot. She was quite satisfied with that man. Similarly, that man was quite satisfied with Su Jiao's young and tender body. Su Jiao didn't prepare to leave after sleeping with him as in the original plot. Instead, she exchanged contact information with the man. It seemed that she had a long-term plan. In this case, all of this had nothing to do with Gu Shengyin. Everything was developing in a completely different direction from the original plot. She was in a good mood the whole day. Even when Mama Su suggested that they go to the capital during the school holidays, she didn't express any disgust. She knew very well in her heart that Mother Su was simply missing Su Jiao, who hadn't been home for almost 3 months. Mother Su was pleasantly surprised to see that her eldest daughter didn't resist. Gu Shengyin sighed. This mother had never given up on any of her daughters. For the past 2 years, she had been trying to mend the relationship between her 2 daughters. Gu Xingyin didn't even have the heart to tell her that it was all in vain. She and Su Jiao could never be reconciled. Gu Xingyin's school and Su Jiao's school had different holidays. Ji Suo had a 3-day break at the end of every month, and Mama Su's intention was to visit the capital during those 3 days. Gu Xingyin didn't have any objections. She would just treat it as a trip. Meanwhile, in a mansion somewhere far away in the capital, Xiao Cheng's voice was calm. Yes, help me buy a ticket to Xia City at the end of this month on the 29th. After hanging up the phone, Xiao Cheng's eyes were filled with anticipation. Chapter 2051. Just last night, he finally made a decision. He was going to Xia City to look for the girl he had only met once, but had never forgotten. He wanted to meet her and confirm what was going on with that inexplicable impulse and nostalgia in his heart. He didn't know if she had changed after not seeing each other for more than a year. Xiao Qing didn't doubt that he would recognize her. After all, no one else had ever given him such a strong feeling. The 29th arrived quickly. The weather had turned cold, and the temperature had dropped over the past few days. When Gu Xingyin went out, she had already put on a long windbreaker. Mother Su didn't tell Gu Xingyin that she was going to see her younger daughter. Over the past year, her eldest daughter's attitude made it difficult for her to bring up the matter. On the contrary, Gu Xingyin felt a little distressed when she saw her mother's conflicted look. She simply said, "Mom, when we reach the capital, you can go see Su Jiao on the way." Mother Su was happy that her eldest daughter had taken the initiative to bring up the matter, but then she immediately reacted. She was talking about her going to see her. For a moment, Mother Su didn't know what to feel in her heart. She asked, "Yan Yan, aren't you going to see your sister?" Gu Xingyin shook her head. "Better not. If I see her, I don't think either of us will be happy." Mother Su's mouth moved, and Gu Xingyin could see that she still had something to say. However, there were some things that she could do for her mother, so she would naturally do them. But there were also some things that couldn't be compromised no matter what. There weren't many people in the first-class cabin, and the seats around the mother and daughter were empty. Gu Xingyin lowered her voice and said in a voice that wouldn't disturb others, but was loud enough for her mother to hear clearly. "Mom, I know what you want to see. But Su Jiao and I can't be sisters anymore." Mother Su looked at her with a sad gaze. Gu Xingyin hardened her heart. "Mom, I'm sorry." She turned her head away and pulled down her blindfold, no longer looking at her mother. Mother Su didn't say anything else. Gu Xingyin had something on her mind, and she fell asleep during the steady and boring flight. When he woke up again, he heard the notification that he was about to land. She took off the blindfold and met Mama Su's gentle gaze. Mama Su took her hand. "Yan Yan, Mama won't force you. Mama was thinking that since you two are sisters, you can take care of each other in the future if your relationship is good. If you really don't like it." She paused for a moment before saying the rest of her words, "No matter what, as long as you're happy." Gu Xingyin heaved a sigh of relief. Sure enough, in the heart of any parent, they were infinitely tolerant of their children. Even if she was the one who made such a willful request. The plane landed safely, and the mother and daughter left the airport. At the same time, a man who was preparing to go to Xia City also hurried over. Xiao Qing had a meeting in the morning. By the time it ended, it was already very late. He rushed to the airport. Just as he was about to enter, his eyes suddenly widened. He saw 2 people coming out of the airport gate. Of course, although there were 2 people, his gaze almost completely fell on one of them. It was her. He hadn't seen her for more than a year, but she had hardly changed. Chapter 2052. Xiao Qing stood there and watched as the figure walked towards him, getting closer and closer. He also wanted to see it more clearly. There were still changes. She seemed to have grown a lot taller, and her face was longer and more three-dimensional than before. Xiao Qing subconsciously raised his leg to get closer to her, but after taking a step, he stopped. If he went over to look for her so rashly, would he be treated as a lunatic? Did he want him to say, "I haven't been able to forget you ever since I saw you a year ago"? Anyone would think that such words were a hooligan. Moreover, Xiaoqing glanced at the middle-aged lady beside Gu Xingyin. Looking at their similar faces, they were probably mother and daughter. It seemed like the mother and daughter had something to do, so it was better not to disturb them. As he was letting his imagination run wild, he suddenly met someone's gaze. Xiaoqing was shocked, and he subconsciously straightened his back. "She's looking at me." Xiaoqing swore that even when he was young, he had never been so nervous when his father tested him on his homework. He had washed his hair before he went out today and specially tidied it up. Yes, his taste in clothes was not bad, and he didn't do anything that would make people feel disgusted. Xiaoqing evaluated himself and came to a conclusion: he looked pretty good today. After he thought about it, he looked at the other party confidently and was about to give her a gentlemanly smile. However, where was she? Xiaoqing. He came back to his senses and realized that the mother and daughter had already walked past him and walked out. They went out, to go out. Xiaoqing felt like an idiot just now. However, even though he was an idiot, he was still quite happy in his heart. He had originally wanted to go to Xia City to look for her, but now she had come to the capital herself. It saved him a lot of effort. Seeing the mother and daughter get into a taxi, Xiaoqing hurriedly got into the car and followed them silently. Young Master Xiaoqing, who had always prided himself on being open and aboveboard, felt like a wretched man who was secretly following a beauty. It was simply heartbreaking. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but laugh. Mother Su, who was sitting beside her, looked at her strangely. "What's wrong? Why are you so happy all of a sudden?" Gu Xingyin used the phone in her hand as a shield. "Nothing. I just saw a funny joke." Seeing this, Mother Su didn't ask any more questions and simply said, "Don't play with your phone in the car. Be careful of your eyes." Gu Xingyin smiled and nodded. Of course, she noticed Xiaoqing. Not only did she notice him, but she also saw him secretly sizing her up, but when she looked at him, he lowered his head. Of course, now, Gu Xingyin could clearly confirm that the two low-key black cars behind him were following him all the way. They looked inconspicuous. The taxi stopped at the gate of Su Jiao's school. Mother Su got out of the car and sighed when she saw that her eldest daughter had no intention of getting out. Gu Xingyin said obediently, "I'm waiting for Mom at the hotel." Their itinerary had already been arranged. Gu Xingyin didn't want to stay at Su Jiao's apartment, so she had already booked a hotel. Xiaoqing followed behind and watched as the older lady got out of the car. The person he was thinking about was still in the car. Of course, he continued to follow without saying anything. Gu Xingyin got out of the car and walked into the hotel. Xiaoqing sat silently in the car, thinking about how to strike up a conversation. Chapter 2053. Then, he saw Gu Xingyin walk out alone. Xiaoqing thought for a moment, stopped the car, and slowly followed her. The person in front didn't seem to have a destination. She was just taking a stroll, or rather, she just wanted to walk around the capital. He followed her for about 20 minutes. Xiaoqing took a look. This was a famous theme park in the capital. Gu Xingyin walked in. Then, she found a lounge chair in a more remote location and sat down. Xiaoqing was thinking about whether he should go up when he saw the other party raise his head and look at him. He was shocked. Had he been discovered? Xiaoqing glanced at the other party. The other party's expression was gentle and calm, and no emotions could be seen. He thought for a moment and felt that this was a good opportunity to strike up a conversation, so he walked over. He walked up to Gu Xingyin. Before he could think of a way to greet her, he was shocked by her words. "You've been following me since the airport. What's the matter?" The other party didn't seem to be afraid. She tilted her head and looked at him with a hint of a smile in her tone. Xiaoqing felt a little embarrassed. After all, his behavior was really like that kind of, in short, it was filled with an indescribable perversion. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he helplessly realized that his actions really couldn't be washed away. He couldn't help but want to cover his face. Gu Shengyin looked at the man's unpredictable expression with interest. In the end, she said, "I'm sorry." She couldn't help but laugh. She winked at Xiao Qing and said, "Since you're so handsome, I'll forgive you." For the first time, Xiao Qing was so grateful to his parents for giving him a handsome face. To be fair, Xiao Qing wasn't an introverted boy. His family background, the education he had received since he was young, and the environment he grew up in were enough for him to speak frankly in any big occasion. But now, he felt at a loss for words in this quiet little world. He really wanted to strike up a conversation, but he didn't know what to say. Sigh, does she think of me as a pervert who goes up to a beauty when he sees one? Aya, she looks so cute with her eyes lowered. Her eyelashes are so long. I really want to touch them. Xiao Qing, the idiot, automatically switched to his imagination mode in his awkward state. Gu Shengyin waited for a while, but she didn't hear anything. She couldn't help but raise her head curiously. Then, she saw Xiao Qing's handsome face with a mesmerizing smile. Gu Shengyin, logically speaking, did he really not have any special hobbies? Fortunately, Xiao Qing was very sensitive to his surroundings. When he sensed Gu Shengyin's gaze, he immediately put away his smile and kicked those strange thoughts out of his mind. Then he asked seriously, "My name is Xiao Qing. May I know?" Gu Shengyin also reported her name. Successfully obtained the name. Xiao Qing was very happy. After his imagination ended, Xiao Qing seemed to have returned to normal. He sat down on another bench and took the initiative to chat with Gu Shengyin. For someone like Xiao Qing, as long as he was willing, he had many ways to easily gain the favor of strangers. Even if it wasn't a good impression, it wouldn't be annoying. Especially now that he was trying to please Gu Shengyin. The conversation between the two of them was quite happy. Until Gu Shengyin received a call. Xiao Qing listened to her quietly. It was probably her mother calling to ask her to go back. Gu Shengyin hung up the phone. Chapter 2054. At a time like this, of course, he had to increase his favorability. Xiao Qing immediately said that he could send her back. Gu Shengyin didn't refuse. Then, the car drove to the entrance of the hotel Gu Shengyin had booked. Xiao Qing didn't open the car door immediately. He looked at Gu Shengyin and hesitated. Gu Shengyin sighed and said, "Let's exchange contact information." Xiao Qing was overjoyed. That was what he wanted to say. But on the other hand, he felt that asking for contact information for the first time, it didn't seem right. The two of them quickly exchanged contact information. Gu Shengyin suddenly said, "If you want to pursue me, hesitating like this won't do you any good." Xiao Qing. Gu Shengyin continued, "Why do you think I'm so polite to a man who's following me? Or do you think I'm such an easy to talk to and have no temper?" Xiao Qing was stunned. Gu Shengyin said, "I'll stay in the capital for 3 days." Then, she opened the car door and got out. Xiao Qing was still in a daze. After a while, he seemed to come back to his senses, and a puzzled and ecstatic expression appeared on his face. Without another word, he called his childhood friend, Chu Ming. "Chu Ming, I have something very important to ask you," he said seriously. Chu Ming, who was shopping with his new girlfriend, was shocked by his serious tone. He let his girlfriend shop on her own and walked to the other side. What happened? Then, Xiao Qing told him about how he met Gu Shengyin today. Of course, he repeated what Gu Shengyin said in the end without missing a word. After that, he asked a little nervously, "Do you think what she's trying to say is the same as what I'm trying to say?" Chu Ming, he gritted his teeth and said, "Did you feed your 190 IQ to the dogs? She's already hinted so clearly, and you're still asking me? Hurry up. Such a stupid guy deserved to be single for 10,000 years." This was the first time Xiao Qing felt that his childhood friend's voice was so pleasant. He suddenly laughed. "I got it. All right, there's nothing for you to do now. You can go now." After that, he hung up the phone. Chu Ming, who had been miserably abandoned after using her,
Gu Xingyin had just returned to her room when she received a message from Xiao Cheng. Do you have time for a meal tomorrow? Have you finally figured it out? Gu Xingyin gave an affirmative answer. Then there was a knock on her door. Opening the door, Gu Xingyin was not surprised to see Mother Su and Su Jiao, who was well-dressed, standing outside the door. Sure enough, Su Jiao had always known what kind of daughter her parents liked. Gu Xingyin looked indifferent. Mom. She nodded at Su Jiao. Seeing her eldest daughter's expression, Mama Su was a little embarrassed. She gently tugged at her younger daughter, and Su Jiao softly called Gu Xingyin, sister. After she said that, she looked at Su Jian eagerly, not knowing what kind of response she was expecting. Gu Xingyin did not respond. She gave a faint hum, and her attitude was no more enthusiastic than before. So Su Jiao was dissatisfied again. She glared at Gu Xingyin angrily and snorted heavily. Gu Xingyin still ignored her. Mama Su had to stand up and smooth things over. I just ordered food from the nearby Tianhe restaurant. I heard it's very famous. Shall we go for dinner together? Chapter 2055. The entire dinner was filled with an awkward atmosphere. Mother Su tried her best to ease the atmosphere, but one of her daughters was only focused on eating, while the other was unhappy after being treated coldly. The whole scene was like this. Mother Su, come, Yan Yan, try this. Yao Yao, you try it too, Su Jiao, you won't even look at me. So angry. Gu Xingyin, oh, this is delicious. This is not bad either. In the end, she could only helplessly send Su Jiao back to school. Of the three of them, only Gu Xingyin was satisfied with the meal. The hotel wasn't far from where they were staying, and Gu Xingyin planned to walk back, treating it as a digestion. A sudden change occurred. She had only walked halfway when a strange aura attacked her from behind. She took a step back and accurately avoided the man's embrace. There was a hint of surprise in the deep voice. Gu Xingyin's expression turned cold, and she turned to look at the stranger behind her. She could tolerate her lover's occasional perverted behavior, but she couldn't tolerate other men doing such things. The man in front of her was very tall, at least 1.9 meters. His face was resolute, and under his rolled-up sleeves, she could see the bulging muscles. This was a man with an aura as strong as a wolf. He narrowed his eyes, and his expression seemed a little unhappy. I haven't seen you for 2 days, and your temper has grown. At this time, Gu Xingyin also knew who he was. Wasn't he the man who tortured Su Jian to death in the original plot? Of course, he was now in a sexual relationship with Su Jiao. This man, Gu Xingyin said coldly, who are you? The man thought she was playing some kind of game, and reached out to grab her, saying obscenely, who am I? You'll know when we're on the bed. Gu Xingyin's expression turned fierce, and without saying a word, she dodged to the side. Her figure flashed, and she was already in front of the man. Then, with a swift and violent kick, she slashed at the man's waist. The man's expression turned serious, and he reacted quickly. As he retreated, he reached out to block Gu Xingyin's congratulations. So heavy. The man took 2 steps back and looked at Gu Xingyin as if looking at a monster. How could such a small body have so much strength? Gu Xingyin, who had the help of the system, did not continue to chase after him. Instead, he maintained a defensive posture and looked at him. She actually hated this man. The reason why he didn't care about him was because he knew that in this world, he and Su Jiao were together. Gu Xingyin didn't pay any attention to the matter between the two of them, holding the thought of letting the wicked deal with the wicked one. She also wanted to see what would happen to Su Jiao after provoking this man. The man's hawk-like eyes locked on Gu Xingyin. You are not Su Jiao. He was well aware of the capabilities of the women he had slept with. Gu Xingyin sneered, I said it from the beginning. The man looked at her closely, as if he was looking at a rare thing. Are you willing to follow me? Such a woman was strong in bed with her lover, and amazing in fighting as a subordinate. Gu Xingyin glanced at him coldly, and the killing intent in her eyes was clear. Do you want to die? She turned and left. I'm different from Su Jiao. Let go of those disgusting thoughts. If you push me too hard, I'll make you regret it for a lifetime. Chapter 2056. The man stood behind Gu Shengyin and didn't follow her. Firstly, he hadn't figured out Gu Shengyin's background yet. Secondly, his aching hands reminded him that if he didn't use firearms, he wouldn't be able to keep her. Even if the man had some power, he wouldn't dare to use firearms in public in the capital. That night, Su Jiao received a call from the man. A girl who looks exactly like me? Su Jiao's expression didn't look good. She snorted. Why? Are you interested in her? The man's deep voice was as sexy as ever. How is that possible? That woman looks pure and simple. How can she be compared to my little wild cat? This kind of sweet talk didn't work on Su Jiao at all. She said, don't try that. That woman is my sister, a famous straight-A student. She's not like us. She made it very clear that she wanted the man to stop having any ideas about Su Jian. Of course, Su Jiao wasn't thinking about Gu Shengyin and didn't want her to be targeted. She said that to the man because she wasn't tired of that man yet. She had classified that man as her own, so she naturally couldn't stand him being attracted to Gu Shengyin. In that case, wouldn't it prove that she couldn't compare to Su Jian? She definitely wouldn't allow that to happen. The man probably understood what she meant and didn't continue the topic. However, no one knew what he was thinking in his heart. The next day, Gu Shengyin received a message from Xiaoqing early on. He had already booked the time and place. Mom, I'm going out to play. I won't be having lunch with you. Mother Su was a little surprised. Where are you going alone? Gu Shengyin smiled. I have a good online friend in the capital. Mother Su was a little worried when she heard that. Online friend? Could it be a scam? Gu Shengyin had to comfort her. Don't worry about Mom, we have an appointment to meet in a place with many people. She is afraid that I am a bad person. She told a small lie. Otherwise, Mama Su wouldn't have dared to leave her alone. Even so, Mother Su was still worried and insisted on going with them. Gu Shengyin sighed and shook her phone. Can you report your schedule at any time? My friend will be nervous if you're here. Seeing her daughter's insistence, Mother Su could only give up. When Gu Shengyin went out, she reminded him worriedly, remember to call me. The two of them had agreed to meet at 11 o'clock, but Xiaoqing arrived before 10 o'clock. Last night, he had repeatedly called out Chu Ming, which almost drove him crazy. I say, Uncle Xiaoqing. Don't ask me any tricks or strategies. The lady has already made it so obvious. You need to be more attentive and diligent today. Show your ability to compete with the client. As long as you don't make any stupid mistakes, you'll definitely succeed. He was still a little worried. He had woken up early in the morning and groomed himself for half a day. He was finally satisfied after making sure that every strand of hair was in its proper position. When he went out, the old man, who was sitting on the sofa and watching Beijing opera, turned his head to look at his grandson a few times. Where are you going? In front of this old man who had been on the battlefield, Xiaoqing had always been serious and almost never hid anything. He subconsciously replied, to see your future granddaughter-in-law. Chapter 2057. There was silence. Old Master Xiao didn't even watch his favorite drama. He held his walking stick and turned to look at his grandson. I think I just heard a granddaughter-in-law. Xiaoqing pursed his lips and answered honestly, not yet. How well did old Master Xiao know his grandson? With just these words and his grandson's current expression, he knew what stage his granddaughter-in-law was at. It was obvious that this brat hadn't taken her down yet. He stomped his walking stick on the ground. Then why aren't you going? Xiaoqing responded and walked out. When he walked out of the door, he heard the old man's energetic voice. Remember to bring her back for me to see. Xiaoqing sat in his seat and kept looking at his watch. It should have been something that he was very confident about, but at this moment,
he started to worry about gains and losses. He couldn't help but wonder if yesterday's conversation was just a hallucination. She wouldn't go back on her word, right? As he thought about it, Xiaoqing felt like he was retarded. If such behavior happened to anyone else, he would definitely be able to use sharp words to make the other party regain their lost IQ within 10 minutes. But when it came to himself, he sighed softly. As expected, the result of caring too much was definitely to worry about gains and losses. Although he had always looked like a humble and polite young master, with his identity, his life had always been smooth. How could he not have a trace of pride in his bones? Even 2 days ago, if someone had told him that one day, he would be so worried about gains and losses because of someone, he would have lost his confidence. Xiaoqing would have smiled faintly. On the surface, he would have been able to deflect the person with little effort, but in his heart, he would have cursed the person and added him to the permanent blacklist. But now, Xiaoqing thought expressionlessly that he might be the retarded one. It was 10:30 p.m. He couldn't help but take out his phone to call Chu Ming. Just as he dialed the familiar number, he saw a familiar figure walking towards him. Xiaoqing put his phone down on the table and stood up. On the other side, Chu Ming, who had been partying with a group of friends all night, saw that it was his childhood friend calling. He endured his sleepiness and answered the call. "Hello?" No one said anything. "Chu Ming?" he shouted again. Xiaoqing watched as Gu Xingyin sat down. Only then did he remember that his phone was still connected. Seeing that it was still connected, he hung up without saying anything. "Chu Ming." He thought that something had happened to Xiaoqing, so he called him again. When Xiaoqing saw the call, he quickly replied without hesitation. The pitiful Chu Ming looked at the sentence, "I'm busy right now. I don't have time to pay attention to you. If there's anything, let's talk at night." His muddled brain reacted for a while. "Fuck, who's looking for you? You were the one who called me." He angrily threw the phone at his feet and went back to sleep. "You can answer the phone first," Gu Xingyin said when she saw Xiaoqing's behavior. Xiaoqing shook his head. "It's nothing important." He understood Chu Ming. If there really was something important, he could call you a dozen times in one go. Either you answer his call, or you get annoyed and blacklisted. Xiaoqing handed the menu to Gu Xingyin. "What do you like to eat?" Gu Xingyin glanced at it and didn't stand on ceremony with him. She casually pointed at a few dishes. Xiaoqing was obviously very happy to see her attitude. He took the menu and ordered 3 or 4 more dishes. After ordering, he handed the dishes to the waiter who was waiting at the side. He looked at Gu Xingyin without blinking. Gu Xingyin smiled and said, "Why are you looking at me? I'll continue later." Chapter 2058. Qing asked hesitantly, "What did you mean by what you said to me earlier?" Of course, Gu Xingyin knew what he was asking. But now, she wanted to be naughty. What did you say?" Xiaoqing felt a little embarrassed. "You said that if it wasn't me, it was another man." Gu Xingyin blinked and said, "Exactly what I said." Xiaoqing scratched his head. Gu Xingyin, on the other hand, looked at him with amusement. She wanted to know how long he could hold back before he spoke. Xiaoqing's other hand on the table couldn't help rubbing his wrist. To be precise, he was rubbing his watch. This was his habit. When he was nervous or thinking about a problem, his body would subconsciously do this. Xiaoqing looked at the girl opposite him. There was a faint smile on her exquisite face, and her big black and bright eyes were looking straight at him. Her gaze seemed to be filled with encouragement. He suddenly had an epiphany. The hesitation and nervousness from before disappeared in an instant. He looked deeply into Gu Xingyin's eyes, but the words that came out of his mouth stunned her. "The first time I saw you was a year ago." Gu Xingyin was surprised. Why didn't she know about this? Xiaoqing seemed to have completely calmed down. He relaxed his body slightly and leaned against the back of the loose and soft chair. He looked at Gu Xingyin and smiled. At that time, I happened to go to Xia City to play and saw you at the entrance of a middle school. I only saw you once and hurried back to the capital. I've been serving you for nearly a year and a half. I haven't been to Xia City again, but I haven't forgotten you. The smile on Gu Xingyin's lips deepened. This reaction made Xiaoqing happy. He told a secret that he had never told anyone else. Actually, 2 days ago, you saw me at the airport. It was I who had arranged the things in my hands and was about to go to Xia City to look for you. Gu Xingyin's eyes widened. Xiaoqing smiled. He seemed a little embarrassed, but his eyes were shining as he looked at Gu Xingyin. I want to find the girl I've only seen once but can never forget. I want to see her, I want to ask her. He looked at Gu Xingyin, and there seemed to be a galaxy in his eyes. I want to ask her if she has a boyfriend. Gu Xingyin asked, what do you want to do now that you know the answer? Xiaoqing smiled. If she doesn't have a boyfriend, I'll apply for a job. If there is. I refuse to accept this possibility. Gu Xingyin was amused by his domineering and willful words. Facing the man's expectant gaze, she pretended to ponder for a while and finally said, well, since you're so handsome, I'll allow you to take up the post. It was only at this moment that Xiaoqing's heart finally settled down. He said, Yan Yan, is it okay for me to call you that? Does your family mind that you have a boyfriend now? Gu Xingyin only glanced at Xiaoqing. I'll be 18 in a year. What do you think? Xiaoqing. Well, to be honest, he just wanted to go to his parents-in-law's house as soon as possible and settle their relationship. After talking about it, the awkwardness between the two of them seemed to have disappeared. After dinner in a pleasant atmosphere, Gu Xingyin thought of that man. She asked, by the way, you're from the capital. Do you know a person named Xiaolong? Chapter 2059. Xiaolong. Actually, Xiaoqing really knew him. But he was not sure if the Xiaolong he knew was the same person as the one Gu Xingyin talked about. If they were the same person, how could Yan Yan know such a person? Gu Xingyin saw that Xiaoqing didn't speak, so she thought he didn't know him. She said, it's said that he's a gangster. If you can get in touch with him, Xiaoqing asked, do you know him? There was a hint of disgust on Gu Xingyin's face. I met him last night. Xiaoqing suddenly became nervous. Are you okay? Why didn't you tell me that you met him? He had heard of Xiaolong's reputation, and he vaguely knew that this person was cruel and fond of beauties. In a short moment, he imagined a scene of a bully flirting with a girl. Gu Xingyin shook her head to show that she was fine. I'm fine, but it seems that that person won't let it go. Xiaoqing looked cold. Don't worry, Yan Yan. I'll deal with Xiaolong, don't worry, he won't pester you anymore. Did he mean that he would make Xiaolong suffer? Gu Xingyin thought that if Xiaolong took her away so early, what would happen to Su Jiao? She quickly stopped him. If you have the ability, ask someone to warn him and teach him a lesson. My sister, Su Jiao, seems to have a good relationship with him. She didn't say anything more than that. Sister? Xiaoqing remembered the girl with coquettish makeup he met on the road earlier. It seemed that she should be the sister that Yan Yan mentioned. In this way, the characters of the two sisters were really a little different. Out of concern, he still reminded her, Xiaolong is not easy to deal with. Yan Yan, you can mention it to your sister. Mention it? Gu Xingyin thought that even if she reminded her sister out of kindness, Su Jiao would probably only think that she was jealous. She said with a cold look, there's no need to remind me. My relationship with Su Jiao is not as good as you think. You don't have to do anything for her. She didn't mind exposing some things in front of Xiaoqing. They were going to be together for the rest of their lives. There were some things that didn't need to be hidden. Seeing this, Xiaoqing felt strange, but thinking about it, there were many examples of sisters in big families who didn't get along well, so Yan Yan's attitude wasn't strange. Wasn't that girl also unhappy when he asked her questions earlier? Thinking of this, he nodded. Then I won't interfere in her matters. He vaguely sensed something in his heart, but he didn't say anything. Before knowing what had happened, no one had the right to interfere with the decisions of others. Gu Xingyin didn't know what Xiaoqing did. Anyway, from then on, the man called Xiao Long really didn't come to find Gu Xingyin. Based on Gu Xingyin's understanding of that man's vicious character, this was almost impossible. She didn't ask about Xiaoqing's family background, but Xiaoqing didn't seem to have any intention of hiding anything from her. The imperial capital, surnamed Xiao, had great power. Almost anyone with a brain would be able to connect these things together and obtain a terrifying message. So it was that family. If she guessed correctly, Xiaoqing's grandfather should be the old man who often appeared on the central news in the early years. If that was the case, it would not be strange for Xiaoqing to be able to make Xiao Long obedient. Chapter 2060. Time passed again. Gu Xingyin was admitted to the first university of the imperial capital with first place in Jisua. And Su Jiao was also admitted to an ordinary second-rate school in the imperial capital. What surprised Gu Xingyin was that Su Jiao actually got along with the man called Xiao Long for 2 years in a relationship that was neither close nor distant. And it seemed that they had real feelings for each other. Not long after Gu Xingyin entered her first year of university, it was her 19th birthday. On the day of National Day, she was dragged back to the Xiao family by Xiaoqing. According to Xiaoqing, the entire Xiao family had long known about her and had always asked Xiaoqing to bring her home to meet them. However, Xiaoqing had hidden her too well. This time, they finally met in person. When the two sides met, they had a good impression of each other. A family like the Xiao family had an excellent family upbringing. It was impossible for them to have unruly plots like those in some TV series. On the contrary, they were quite satisfied with Gu Xingyin's appearance and speech. When they heard that she was a student of the first university, their impression of her improved a lot. At the end of the semester, Gu Xingyin also brought Xiaoqing home. Their eldest daughter brought her boyfriend home. This was a very shocking thing for the Su family's parents. Mother Su was fine. Father Su was very picky about Xiaoqing, but he couldn't find any fault with Xiaoqing's behavior. As for Xiaoqing, it was only after the Su parents finally showed their approval of him that he revealed his identity. The two elders were dumbfounded. Although they were considered rich and their families had a lot of connections in the political world. But a family like the Xiao family, which truly stood at the top, was in the core circle that ordinary people had no way to set foot in. However, this wasn't what made Father Su excited. Old Master Xiao. That was his lifelong idol. Xiaoqing never thought that his grandfather was not only the umbrella of the entire Xiao family, but also played such a huge role when he met his future father-in-law. Father Su's attitude towards Xiaoqing changed 108 degrees. After dinner, he even dragged people to the study to discuss old Master Zhao's great achievements. Mama Su looked at her daughter helplessly. That's how your father is. Gu Xingyin smiled and said nothing. No matter what, this result was something to be happy about. Although she couldn't give up on her lover no matter what her family's attitude was, getting the support of her family was the best result, wasn't it? Su Jiao's school holidays were later. When she returned home, she heard the news that her sister had found a boyfriend. Su Jiao was a little surprised. As far as she knew, Su Jian was the kind of person who only cared about learning and challenges. She was so outstanding that no boy could compare to her. Su Jiao had once viciously speculated that a woman like Su Jian would be like some doctorate professors in university, an old woman in her 30s who wore old-fashioned professional suits every day, had a house and a car, but was still an old virgin that no one cared about. When she occasionally thought of such a possibility, she even felt a little happy in her heart. So what if you're outstanding? If I don't like studying and can't get into a good school, I can still live a carefree life. In comparison, you, Su Jian, are simply a pitiful worm. Chapter 2061. But in just one semester, Su Jian had a boyfriend? Father Su and Mother Su naturally wouldn't talk about Xiaoqing's family background casually, but from their reaction, Su Jiao could see that they were satisfied with Su Jian's boyfriend. A boy who could catch Father Su's and Mother Su's eyes must be good in all aspects. Su Jiao felt unbalanced again. She always felt that Su Jian was doing it on purpose, wanting to be ahead of her in everything. However, she had never thought about the fact that she had dated countless boyfriends over the years. It wasn't that there hadn't been a man who loved her wholeheartedly, but Su Jiao was greedy for fresh excitement and finally got tired of it after a while. It was her own decision not to bring her boyfriend home. How could she blame Gu Xingyin for this? It seemed that there was a saying that was right: when you didn't like someone, no matter what they did, you could see the shadow in them with narrow-minded eyes. Su Jiao was like this when she looked at Su Jian. On this day, Gu Xingyin was reading on a wooden chair in the garden as usual. The summer in Xia City wasn't too hot, but it was definitely not friendly. Sometimes, when the sun wasn't so hot, Gu Xingyin would walk out of the air-conditioned room and sit under the vines to cool down. She thought about it carefully. On the first day she came to this world, she seemed to have sat in this place in the same posture. In the blink of an eye, such a long time had passed. Su Jian. A clear voice called her name. Gu Xingyin narrowed her eyes and looked at the person walking towards her. In the past 2 years, the relationship between the two sisters had become colder and colder, and they couldn't even be bothered to maintain the harmony on the surface. For example, they called each other by their names as if they were strangers. Su Jiao's expression didn't look too good, but she still said, "Jingnan and the others have a party tomorrow night. Do you want to go with us?" Jingnan? Gu Xingyin thought for a while and shook her head. No. She grew up with the two sisters when she was young, but after junior high school, she became estranged from Su Jian. However, she had a good relationship with Su Jiao. Both of them were famous for their playful personalities. It was easy to imagine what kind of activities they would have at their gathering. Su Jiao bit her lip. If it were her, of course, she would not be willing to invite Gu Xingyin. However, Jingnan also invited a few handsome men and beautiful women. Some of them heard that Su Jiao had a sister who went to the first university, so they all urged her to come over. Su Jiao was also drunk at that time. She said on the spot that her sister listened to her the most. As long as she asked, Su Jian would definitely come. As for how much he regretted after he woke up, that was a matter for the future. In short, in order not to lose face, Su Jiao straightened her neck and invited Gu Xingyin. Obviously, Gu Xingyin did not intend to give her face. "Su Jian, just do me a favor. Tell me what you want," Su Jiao said. Gu Xingyin glanced at her and snorted. "What do you think is worthy of my attention?" Su Jiao's face was livid. Gu Xingyin felt that she had not provoked her enough and continued, "Also, Su Jiao, what kind of dirty things are in your so-called gathering? Mom and Dad don't know, but don't think that I don't know." She didn't hide her disdain at all in her tone. "You have the face to invite me? Su Jiao, I find it dirty for you." Chapter 2062. Su Jiao's expression changed. She couldn't help raising her voice and looking at Gu Xingyin. "What do you mean?" She thought that she had been in the capital for the past few years, and she didn't act as ostentatiously as before. Her family was far away in Xia City, so it was impossible for them to know what she had done. Su Jian was deliberately scaring her, wasn't she? She snorted and said, "I know you look down on me, Su Jian. It's fine if you don't want to play with us, but why do you have to speak so harshly?" Harshly? Gu Xingyin seemed to have heard a joke. She suddenly stood up, approached Su Jiao, and said softly, "Do you really think that the campus hunk in your school, the man named Xiao Long, and the man in the bar called Blue every month can really hide from everyone's eyes?" She looked at Su Jiao indifferently, and her face suddenly turned pale. Gu Xingyin said, "Su Jiao, you can rest assured for the time being that Mom and Dad don't know about this, and I don't intend to tell them." Su Jiao's eyes lit up, and then she had some doubts. She didn't believe that Su Jian would be so kind. Gu Xingyin said coldly, "I'm not a saint, and the little sisterhood I have for you has long disappeared. The reason why I didn't tell Mom and Dad was that I didn't want them to be sad because of you, and I wanted to threaten you with this." Su Jiao's eyes widened because of Gu Xingyin's words. It was the first time that she had heard someone say the word threat so confidently. What do you want? Su Jiao's tone was much more polite because she had something on her. She knew very well that mom and dad didn't like her behavior. If they knew that she still couldn't change her style when she was in the capital, Su Jiao didn't want to think about what would happen to her. Maybe her angry father would directly take away the shares that he had intended to leave for her. Gu Xingyin glanced at her and said, "What I want is very simple. Don't jump around in front of me in the future, and put away that bad idea in your heart." She looked at Su Jiao, who seemed to be very indignant, with a mocking expression. "Don't play tricks, Su Jiao." She stretched out a hand and waved it gently. "When I said those words, you should have known that your life has always been under my control." Su Jiao suddenly raised her head and looked at her sister. The Su Jian in front of him still looked calm and gentle, innocent and harmless. Su Jiao thought absent-mindedly that she had always been deceived by her. She had always looked down on Su Jian. She felt that Su Jian's life was boring and she felt that Su Jian was very silly. Now that he thought about it, wasn't he the foolish one? When he went to provoke Su Jian, did she always think that he was an idiot in her heart? Su Jiao turned around and left silently. Gu Xingyin looked at her back and thought that if she still had some brains, she probably wouldn't bother him anymore. She was right. Su Jiao didn't provoke her again, nor did she lose her temper with her. From that moment on, the two sisters had truly become strangers who had never interacted with each other before. 3 years later, Gu Xingyin graduated. The elders of the Su family and the Shao family met, and the relationship between them was officially established. Chapter 2063. At the engagement party with Shao Qing, Gu Xingyin saw Su Jiao, whom she hadn't seen for a long time. She seemed to be having a good time. She was dressed very delicately, and she looked much more charming than before. The man named Gu Xingyin stood beside her in surprise. "Xiao Long, she brought Xiao Long to my wedding. Could it be that the two of them had developed from lovers to a real couple?" Gu Xingyin was a little curious. After all, whether it was Xiao Long or Su Jiao, neither of them had the temperament to stop for someone. It was hard to imagine what the future would be like when the two of them got together. However, she only thought about it for a moment and then gave up this idea. Not to mention what would happen to the two of them in the future, it had nothing to do with her. The increasing involvement between Su Jiao and Xiao Long was very much in line with her own wishes. Su Jiao was spoiled, and Xiao Long was surly and difficult to get along with. The two of them would probably torture each other for a long time. "What are you looking at?" Her hands were covered by a pair of warm hands, and Xiao Cheng's gentle voice appeared in her ears. Gu Xingyin was stunned for a moment, then she came back to her senses and shook her head with a smile. "Nothing." She held the hand of the man beside her. She just needed to live her own life. What did other people's lives have to do with her? After the elder daughter got engaged, the younger daughter, Su Jiao, also brought her boyfriend back to meet her parents. Father Su and Mother Su were not at ease when they saw Xiao Long's appearance, but Su Jiao insisted that she liked him, and as parents, there was nothing they could do. Su Jiao still beat Gu Xingyin, her elder sister, on something. For example, marriage. Xiao Long didn't have parents. Su Jiao, who had always been willful, got married to him almost immediately after obtaining the consent of her parents. After that, she lived in the capital with her husband for a long time. Gu Xingyin also lived in the capital, but the two sisters had never met each other. Gu Xingyin finally knew why the two of them got married. It was really ridiculous. Because after marriage, Xiao Long and Su Jiao still played their own games. A proper couple would actually go to a bar together. The husband was looking for a lover, and the wife was having a one-night stand. Both parties didn't seem to mind at all. What was even more outrageous was that the couple would occasionally play with others. Gu Xingyin's worldview was refreshed. In the past, she had always thought that such an unreasonable plot would only appear in porn. She had never thought that such a thing would actually happen in front of her. It was really disgusting. What was marriage to these two people? Because of this, Gu Xingyin no longer paid attention to Su Jiao. She told the system not to tell her anything unless something big happened to Su Jiao or if she wanted to harm her. Another year passed. Gu Xingyin and Xiao Qing finally got married and became a real couple. Less than half a year after their marriage, Gu Xingyin became pregnant. After October, she gave birth to a pair of twin girls. When she was so tired that she fell asleep, Gu Xingyin seemed to hear the system say something. She opened her eyes again and found that her body had been cleaned. Her lower body was very clean and refreshing, and her husband, Xiao Qing, was looking at the two cradles beside him and smiling. Yen yen. Seeing her wake up, Xiao Qing smiled with satisfaction. Thank you for making my life perfect enough. He leaned over gently and kissed the corner of her forehead. Chapter 2064. After the confinement, Gu Xingyin's body recovered well. Finally, the system reminded her of something again. It was about Su Jiao. She didn't have a good time recently. To be precise, it seemed to have started 3 months ago. There was a conflict between her and Xiao Long. The husband and wife, who were originally getting along harmoniously, began to dislike each other. After Gu Xingyin found out what kind of life the two of them had after getting married, he understood that there was no such thing as true love between the two of them. People who had feelings would never tolerate the other party's disloyalty to them. As for a man like Xiao Long, it was fine when he liked you. It could be said that he would give you whatever you wanted. But if he didn't like you, he would have 100 ways to punish you. They used to have a tacit understanding between them. But now, it had become one of Su Jiao's original sins in his eyes. Su Jiao was about to go crazy from the torture. She was locked in a dark room without any light. She was stripped naked and poured hot wax on her body. She was tied to a wooden frame with her limbs wide open and whipped with a special whip. The first time when Gu Xingyin gave birth was when she had her first emotional breakdown. The system remembered the host's reminder and was about to tell her about it. Gu Xingyin was too tired and fell asleep. When she woke up again, the system chose to hide this matter. Until her body, which was damaged by the delivery, recovered. Only then did the system tell Gu Xingyin what had happened. After another month, Su Jiao was about to go crazy from the torture. Lying on the damp bed, Su Jiao regretted it too much. She regretted more than once that she provoked Xiao Long, the devil. She was sure that this man was definitely mentally abnormal. There was no fierce conflict between them. It was just a small dispute between her and him. But later, she didn't know that her words stimulated Xiao Long. His face suddenly became ferocious. And then, Su Jiao couldn't help but tremble. She trembled when she thought about what happened after that. Xiao Long was simply a lunatic. He took pleasure in torturing her all day long. What made Su Jian despair was that she didn't have any communication tools with her. She was locked in this small room with no way to escape or contact the outside world. She was afraid that one day, she would die here without anyone knowing. There was a chance to save Gu Xingyin. As long as she called the police or asked Xiao Qing to step in, no matter how crazy Xiao Long was, he would not disrespect the Xiao family. However, Gu Xingyin did not say anything, nor did she do anything. It was Su Jiao's own decision to choose Xiao Long. The most important thing was that when she heard about Su Jiao's fate, she would remember what happened to Su Jian in the original plot. Compared to Su Jiao, Su Jian was more innocent and pitiful. Just because of Su Jiao's selfishness, she lost her life. Perhaps in the cycle of reincarnation, Su Jiao would eventually receive retribution for what she had done. 1.5 months later, Gu Xingyin finally received the news. Su Jiao was dead. It was said that in the dark, she broke the cup she was drinking from against the wall and slit her wrist. Because it was discovered too late, she lost too much blood. It was said that the scene was quite bloody. Originally, Xiao Long wanted to destroy the corpse and the evidence, but Gu Xingyin took action at this time. She didn't intend to let Su Jiao go, let alone Xiao Long. The witness and material evidence were conclusive. This adulterous couple could continue to go to the netherworld and torture themselves. Everything was over. However, Gu Xingyin looked at her parents who had obviously aged a lot, and she felt a little guilty. The only thing she felt sorry for was this couple. She glanced at her husband beside her, and then at her parents who were not far away. She would spend the rest of her life being a good wife, a good mother, and a good daughter. This world was over. By the way, the story of this world actually had a prototype, and it was not an isolated phenomenon. Perhaps because it was close to the end, I was very anxious and felt that no matter how I wrote it, it would be wrong. I was not very satisfied with the ending of this story, but I really tried my best. Finally, to answer the question of the ending baby, in the main part of this story, there will be content of 2 worlds. After that, there will be some other worlds. Chapter 2065. It was dark all around. Gu Shengyin could not open her eyes. She could roughly sense that she seemed to be in a huge sealed space. She could not breathe, did not need to breathe, and her 5 senses were weak. She had consciousness, but it seemed to be completely bound to this body. "System," she called out. Fortunately, the system's voice sounded. "Host." Gu Shengyin breathed a sigh of relief and asked, "What's going on with this world?" As soon as she finished speaking, a message rushed into her mind. Because her consciousness was somewhat muddled, even her thinking speed slowed down. After reading the entire plot, Gu Shengyin breathed out. Strictly speaking, she was now a corpse, and the environment she was in was the tomb that the original body had built for herself a few thousand years ago. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to describe it as a sealed place. Huang Tian, the youngest and most powerful great sage in the history of the Phoenix clan. Under her leadership, the Phoenix clan was a famous first-rate clan in the entire Tianxian continent. When the Phoenix clan's reputation was at its peak, Huang Tian suddenly foresaw an ominous future when she was offering sacrifices. 30 years later, the Phoenix clan's earth veins had a problem. Their foundation collapsed, and their ancestral land fell. This series of unforeseen events caused the entire Phoenix clan to fall from a first-rate clan to a second-rate clan in a short 10 years. They were bullied and ridiculed countless times. Huang Tian, who had devoted her life to revitalizing her clan, naturally could not stand by and do nothing. After searching through countless ancient books but to no avail, she finally made a decision. She would use herself, who had the purest bloodline and the strongest power in the entire Phoenix clan, as a guide to suppress the Phoenix clan's earth veins. What level had Huang Tian's cultivation reached? In the Tianxian continent, cultivation of profound qi was the main focus. The realms were divided into profound practitioner, profound master, profound king, profound ancestor, profound venerable, and profound sage. There was also the legendary profound god realm, which could live as long as the heavens and earth. And Huang Tian had already taken that step. If the change in the earth veins had come a few hundred years later, she would have completely entered the profound god realm and would not have to be afraid of this problem. Unfortunately, the timing was too coincidental. She could only use the array as a guide and seal herself within it to suppress the Phoenix clan's earth veins. Now, 1,000 years had passed. The great calamity of the Phoenix clan had already been forcefully suppressed by Huang Tian. The Phoenix clan was still a famous first-rate clan in the Tianxian land. Huang Tian's resting place had always been the sacred ground of the Phoenix clan. No one had ever thought that this great sage who had once done so much for the Phoenix clan had not truly died. If nothing unexpected happened, Huang Tian might continue to sleep in this sealed place for another 1,000 years. Until a grave robber broke the silence. That female mysterious sect called Shin Xiao Xiao, in this world, is a professional tomb robber who makes a living by robbing tombs. Her codename was Yi Sha, and she was considered to be one of the most famous people in the profound sky continent. Moreover, she had a habit of not falling unless